All right, guys, welcome to the Braille Drop Podcast. We are here today with very special guests. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Trevor Ward. I'm from Australia and I own a skateboard school and coaching company called Level Up Skate.
Level up. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
For those of you who do not know me, my name's Aaron Cairo. I'm a sponsored skateboarder from the San Francisco Bay Area, or at least that is the line. And I started this podcast actually to learn more about the industry, specifically the wild ups and downs in the industry, and then also trying to pinpoint why those things occur, and then how do we make this industry just go like a smooth, steady rise, which is my purpose, which is to get more new people into skateboarding and grow skateboarding.
I think that's my purpose too. That's kind of why I see this as a good thing. I'm about just trying to get more people skating. I think if you skateboard, your life's going to be better,
100%.
Yeah, it's the number one thing. Like I found it when I was 8 years old and I'm 47. So it's almost 40 years of skating. And I've been in every facet of it, like with the industry and from being a crappy pro. And yeah.
I love it. You always describe yourself as a crappy pro. Okay, so I'm going to just pretend that I have never spoken to you before and that you've never told me anything about your life. But let's start with a very, very, very early 8 years old. Where did your first skateboard come from? What was it?
Well, I lived in a little town in the west of Western Australia and it was a surf town and all I wanted to do was surf. So I wanted to be a pro surfer. And anyway, my parents were split and dad sent me $50 and I wanted to buy a surfboard, but I didn't have enough money. So mum said, well, you got to get the skateboard. So it was a Veriflex. So I got that and I just skated it around and then they built a ramp in the town and I went there and then my parents, they'd been divorced for like 6 years and then they decided to get back together. Which was really weird. And we moved to the other side of the country, to Victoria and Melbourne area. And then we lived in a town, my uncle lived in a town called Torquay. And that's where like Rip Curl and Quicksilver were invented and come from. So I just was there skating one day and there was all these people at this vert ramp there and it ended up being Tony Hawk and Christian Hosoi and they had what they called the Ramp Riot.
Wait, how old were you at this point?
I was 11.
So 8-year-old, you get your first board.
Yeah. And then I just skated around, you know what I mean? Like loved it, but it was tic-tacs. I didn't know much about ollies and about 10, that's when ollies and all that came in. So we're talking 1986.
1986.
Yeah. I'm old.
That's right? Awesome.
I try to think I'm young, but yeah. And then 87, the Easter tour through Australia and it was Mike McGill, Lance Mountain, Cab, Hawk, Christian Hosoi. I think
this is like pre-Bones Brigade.
This was Bones Brigade.
Oh, legit, straight up.
But I had no idea. I didn't know it even existed. And and we're a tiny little town of like 1,500 people, a surf town, Bells Beach,
Yeah.
And they're there killing it, and Lee Ralph and things like that. So I just watched it and I was like, wow, I want to do that. And then the bug started and I just started skating like flat out, learning ollie, and then it just went from there. As soon as I learned to ollie, like I was just like, I'm hooked. And then I was like, okay, now I need to find a ramp. And then I didn't live in that town. I lived like 4 hours away and there was no skateboarding. Like no one skated where I was from. And I had to convince all my friends to skateboard, which I did.
Yeah.
And then
you actually convinced them.
Convinced them all. Like this was like the height of skating in the 89 and all that. So it was crazy. All my friends got like, gator boards, Hawk boards, Hosoi boards, all of that. And then we didn't have a lot of money and I had a Vision Psycho stick and then I had to buy the seconds print boards because they were expensive. Boards are $150 in Australia when I was a kid.
For just the deck?
Just the deck.
Right.
So I just, I just skated and then there was like a local skate shop, water ski and snow skiing shop as well. And they built a vert ramp 8 feet wide and 8 feet high.
8 feet wide and 8 feet high. Sounds like a death trap.
It was, and it was steel.
Steel.
Oh my God. And I learned all my tricks on it. I learned how to drop in on it.
Wow.
Airs and everything like that. But
How old were you when you did your first vert drop in?
maybe 11, I think. I think I was 11. And then I learned airs but I'm not a vert skater because I skated everything. We skated mini ramp, but we skated street so much.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have access to it, so I had to learn to kickflip. That came in, that freaked me out. And, we were on 10-inch boards.
Right, 10-inch boards. And I just want to point out for the people who are listening, it wasn't like you just pull up a YouTube video, check out a quick tutorial.
Oh, no way.
So, how did you even learn how to drop in?
You think about this. There was always an older guy that could drop in. And in my town, it was a rough town. What we call bogans. There was lots of bogans.
Bogans. What's a bogan?
It's like a hesh dude, a redneck, right? Lots of them. Everyone played football. I remember getting chased down and beat up by this guy, Anthony Mellington, and he ended up playing in a premiership team in the AFL, which is Australian Football League.
Yeah.
And then years later, he'd seen me on TV at the X Games, and he's like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry for doing that. I was a dick." And I'm like, "All right, that's cool." But
that is very cool.
Yeah. So, but he was like, I was like, "Dude, you're giving me a hard time. You're a footballer." And he wasn't cool at all. But anyway, but I guess I'm not cool.
But back in the day, skateboarding, I think that's an important thing to point out. Back in the day when it was skateboarding right now, if you go to high school and you're a skater,
you're cool.
You're cool.
Dude, I was not cool. I was
same.
I was small especially in high school. I didn't grow. And now I'm kind of a bigger dude, but I was the smallest kid in my year. I had a high voice, talked really high. And, I guess I went through puberty later. So, girls just weren't on the radar. So it was I just skated, and I skated so much that, between lunch, I'd run home because we lived close to the school.
Yeah.
And I had a 4-foot mini ramp. So I'd skate the mini ramp for an hour and then run back to school and then back home. That was what I did. And I lived in a town we're so removed. You can look online and learn, you've obviously got all your tutorials and that.
Yeah.
Back then, we'd get a magazine that was 6 months old. By the time Thrasher or Transworld or something made it to Australia, it was 6 months old.
Right.
And we're looking at sequences. Okay, that's how you do it.
Right. Well, looking at what their feet are doing and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's it. And then in the local video shop, they don't even have them now. We would go in there and I remember they had Future Primitive in there, which was a POW video. And
yes.
we'd watch that over and over again. That was how we did it. And
right.
But that was I'm talking 1989 and that was from 1982 or something like that. So it's crazy that we were that far behind. And then Rubbish Heap or Shackle Me Not came out, and we're like, wow, look at this. And you see Danny Way and Afonso and all of that. And then that just totally changed everything when 8th Street came.
Wow.
So
8th Street was a street skateboarding company, right?
Yeah. But that was the thing is back then
it didn't really matter.
No,
street or vert, it didn't really separate it out.
I get it from people all the time. Oh, but you're a vert skater. How do you know how to do that? It's well, I can switch flip right now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's just we had to learn. I love skateboarding. That's just what we did. So there wasn't this thing, oh, you're a vert skater, you're a street skater. And I think that got really polarized in the 90s when we came through then. It was oh, you either do this or that.
Right.
And when vert disappeared, we street skated. You know what I mean? We had to, because what else were you going to do? Or you had friends that just gave up. So we street skated. We wore baggy clothing. It looked ridiculous. I look back now. And like I said, I lived 2 hours from Melbourne. So I would catch a train down there and skate with the kids in Melbourne. And I'd be like, wow, look how good these guys are.
Street skate in the city.
Street skating in the city. You know what I mean? It was crazy. Like I said, I was from a town of 1,500 people. So
yeah,
it's crazy.
I'm from a town similar size.
Yeah. And then you go to these cities and it's massive. And then there's the cliques of people and all of that. And, they used to call me some crazy names. I was from the country, so I was a sheep doer. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so that's what
I understand.
People used to call me, and I was I don't care. I've got pretty thick skin, so I just took it and was street skate with everyone. And then then there was a vert ramp. at Paran, which I'd skate, and that's where Tuss Pappas and those guys would skate, and Jason Ellis, and I'd just sit there and be amazed at those guys. And
yeah, incredible. There's a lot of skateboard history in Australia.
Yeah, definitely. Like you look at Jason Ellis now, he's got a massive following, and that guy went from not being able to read and whatnot, and he skated at Paran Ramp every day, and then him and Tuss would have these huge fights and arguments, and you're just around these, like I said, bogan kids, and my parents are trying to keep me down the straight and narrow, and here I am following skateboarding.
Yeah. What did your parents think about that?
Mum was really good. She was right into skateboarding. Like she set up like an association and ran competitions and tried to fundraise money.
Hey, that's cool.
It was like she'd fit in perfect these days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she had like judges and everything, and then they'd have votes. So all the older skaters would get involved, and I got good pretty quick. So by the time I was like 13, 14, I was like the best skater.
Yeah.
And then all the older guys would get really angry because like I'd win my age division, then I'd win the open division. And so I remember we had a vote once. My mum's like, all right, we're having a vote whether Trevor's going to skate the competitions or he's not allowed to skate. And they all voted me out. So I had to become a judge.
Voted off the island.
I got voted off the island.
How old were you at that point?
I might have been 14.
Okay.
13 or 14. And I was just like, all right, cool. So I'd just go there, skate with them, and then I judged them. And some people I judged pretty badly, but I'm pretty much a fair person in that sense.
Yeah.
I try to give everyone a go. But yeah.
Okay, so then when did like sponsorship come in? And then there's at some point in time you came to the US.
Yeah, so when I was 13, I got sponsored by an Australian company called Bonza. Bonza, right? And that's like a saying like beauty bonza, mate. Like, so like it's
what
really
does that
good.
mean?
It's like, really good. It's really good.
Oh, it's good.
So I got sponsored by them, and then they made this other company called Universal, and they had like trucks like the old gull wings with the groove in them and all of that. And their wheels were really fast. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then as fast as they came in, skateboarding kind of died, And
yeah. So what happened right there? How did it just die?
It was crazy. Like seriously, it was like, I guess it would have been like the dinosaurs. You woke up one day and it was gone. Like I was like in grade 7 at school, maybe first or second year of high school in Australia, because we do like 6 years of primary school, elementary, and then everyone goes to high school, which is another 6 years or year 7 to 12. Yeah. So, I was in my first year. It was hot, like skateboarding. That would have been 1988.
Yeah.
And it was like super hot skating. Everyone did it. I talked all my friends into it. And then by 89, it just died like overnight. Like seriously, it was in magazines. It was even on TV a little bit, and then it just died. And it was like they compared it to the yo-yo. It's gone. You know what I mean? And any skate shop was around that was gone. But in Australia, we didn't have a lot of skate parks, especially in rural areas where I was from.
Right.
So it just died. But I had a mini ramp in my backyard, so I just kept skating, and that was it.
But I think the same thing happened in the US, and I think they even bulldozed skate parks, which when I heard that, I was like, okay, I remember pictures of that. And I think that's the most insane thing ever.
It's crazy. I look at that and I go, there's like, that should be heritage listed now. You know what I mean?
But there's got to be a reason behind that. Somebody decided this is dangerous. We don't want our kids doing that. There's some reason.
I think, punk rock, the whole lifestyle associated with it. People, we were outcasts. We'd walk into McDonald's and people would look at us and we'd have our finger up our nose just to go, what are you looking at? And we thought we were badass doing that, but we weren't.
Because you were badass.
Yeah. Well, we thought we were, but, we couldn't fight or anything like that. We just could run really fast. That's all I could do.
Right.
But seriously, it's like the tap got turned off one day and we were out, like skating's done. But it worked good for me because I went around and bought all my friends full completes for like $10. I said, I'll give you $10 for that. So I collected a heap of skateboards, which was good. And I was able to hold on to bigger wheels because like when they went down to like 40 mil and even smaller, which was crazy to ride on vert.
Oh yeah, impossible.
It was insane. And that's what we had to do. So airs went from, we had to blast like a Zoi to now we're doing like a foot over. And it's like,
Right.
all right, like we did that. But then I had some sitting there and I'd put them in and then skate. And everyone, oh, can I buy some off you? So I was selling them, making a bit of money. And
Oh yeah, so you're entrepreneurial spirit,
I was
right?
trying to, yeah, yeah. So my mum was smart. She's like, go and buy all your friends things. Here's some money, like, you know. And so I'd buy their decks and their completes, and then I'd keep things for myself and whatnot.
Okay, so then Bonza skateboards.
Bonza skateboards, and then that died. Skating died, and I just kept skating. And I finished high school, and always, you know, I got beat up so many times for saying I wanted to be a pro skater.
Really?
Oh, it was just
By other skaters?
No, by like there was no other skaters at that time. Like
Right.
it was just me and maybe one other kid. And I just remember, like in the town, like it was crazy. My parents then moved to a bigger town, and there was like maybe one or two skaters. It was so that's why I went to Melbourne a lot. Or I've got two older sisters, they're twins, and I'd save up money and give them gas money to drive me places.
Yeah.
And so they'd do it because they'd want to perv on the older dudes, you know what I mean, that were skating. They're like, oh, they're hot older guys. Like but they were their age, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they'd be there hanging out, talking to them, and I'm just skating. Like I didn't care. I just wanted to skate.
Yeah, just get the ride.
Yeah. And then I guess X Games kicked off, and, you know,
Now we're in early 90s?
Yeah. So we were in that 90s now because like we skated street from, let's say, like 91 to like 93, 94. And I surfed a lot in that time as well. And
Yeah.
I played Australian rules football. And I kind of did that because all my friends did. And they're like, oh, you can come down here and drink beers with us. And I just wasn't that kid that drank beer, but I was competitive. So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'll come down to the football club. So I went down to the football club and played AFL with them, which is something I was totally against. But I had fun because it was competitiveness. And then, but my coach hated me because I was just the type of guy that was like, I can't take directions from someone. So he'd be like, you need to do this. And I'm like, why? And I'd make him explain it to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good. But what about if we did it this way? And he'd be like, no, it's this way. And I just do my own way. And like,
very, very both skateboarder and very, very Australian of you.
yeah, it was. That's kind of how it is. And anyway, he was like an ex-pro AFL player, and it was like, oh, you've got to have respect for him. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and explain the AFL for somebody who doesn't know.
So AFL is, I guess, we kick the ball, we don't throw it with our hands, right?
Yeah, similar to rugby.
Similar to rugby, but it's on a round oval. And it's much bigger, and it's just a lot of running and free flowing. There's hardly any stopping.
It's
right?
very hardcore.
So we kick the ball in the air and we catch it with our hands, and then we run, and then we kick it again to people. And you got to use like both feet to kick on, and it's highly skilled. And then like you're playing for 2 hours, and it's physical. There's no padding, nothing.
Right,
like,
no padding, very intense. You kick it through a goalpost.
You kick it through a
People just get
goalpost.
smashed.
Yeah. I went back to it when I was 40 because I was like, oh, I can't really skate competitively. And then guys would run into me. Like I was the oldest guy in our league playing AFL. Guys would run into me and smash me, and I'd fall on the ground and get back up, and they go, stay down. I'm like, man, I smashed myself on a skateboard for the last 30 years. This doesn't hurt, you running into me. Like you're falling on grass. She's like, oh yeah, I'll get back up. And they'd be like, why aren't you staying down? And I'm like, fuck, man, like, what are we doing?
You
like,
fall on the cement. See how that feels.
Yeah, that's it. And then when they worked it out, they kind of like, all right, this guy's kind of nuts. So yeah.
Prime example. This guy's kind of nuts.
Yeah. And so then I got into skating. I got it like, you know, vert skating kind of was back because the X Games kind of came. And I remember seeing a flyer because I kind of got to university by now.
Yeah.
I was studying engineering and industrial design, which I hated, by the way. Like I was just like, this isn't for me.
Yeah, very structured when you were very non-structured.
Time management, all of that is not me. Like I've got a really good partner that manages everything I do. She's amazing, and she's fully structured. So it's really hard for her to deal with me. Like I've got ADHD. So it's kind of like, my brain's here and there and there, and I've got great ideas. And, you're a creative person like yourself,
Yes.
and it's so hard to contain that.
Yes.
And you need people around you to help contain those ideas you've got and keep you on track, because you can't do it yourself.
Right.
So, I saw this flyer for what they called in Australia Planet X Games, and it was some company that ripped off the X Games.
Whoa.
And they called it the Planet X Games. And it was these two guys from triathlons that did it. And they brought Bob Burnquist and Rune Glifberg and all those guys out to Australia, and Andy Mack. And they held a contest in this parkland. I was like, shit, I got to go to this. So I went there and did terrible. I think I thought I was better than what I was. But I was just like, all right, this is cool. And then I was like, all right, I got to get to America. So
was that like a humbling experience? Or
oh yeah, 100%.
What was it like?
I'm standing on a ramp with Bob Burnquist, who's skating switch, and I can't even skate as good regular, and he's skating switch better than me. And he won the street comp too.
He did?
Yeah. Bob was insane. What
a legend.
But it was like the whole old,
yes.
bike kind of looking X Games courses. Remember them?
Big jumps everywhere.
Yeah, big jumps.
I saw this post the other day that was like, look at this street course. It's just like huge ramps.
It's insane. So that's like Tony Hawk could win those comps as well. And that's, you think Andy Mack and Brian Patch was another one. They were like known as ATVs because they could skate all this stuff and street X Games. Like, oh, these guys. But it wasn't street. But, those guys can skate street as well.
They're incredible athletes on any level.
Yeah, you can. People don't realize that about those guys. So, so we did that. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I want to be a pro skateboarder. I can always go to school. It's there.
Yeah.
I've got to move to the USA. So my parents had a gas station. So I started working in that, getting money and traveling 3 hours to go and skate the only vert ramp around, then come back. And like I said, I'd skate the local skate park because we had them at that stage.
Right.
And, just hit the rails and whatnot and have fun doing that. And then, turned up in Tampa in Florida in 1998, I think it was.
Okay, so explain what the significance is. Like, why can't you just be a pro in Australia? And then why Tampa, Florida?
All right. So number one of why you can't be a pro in Australia is like our market is probably 0.01% of the USA, right, in money wise. So
for skateboarding specifically.
For skateboarding, for anything. Like we're so small. We've got 27 million people in Australia, and between LA and San Diego, you've got 27 million people sitting there.
It's crazy.
So we've got, and our land is, I think it's the same as what the USA is.
Wow.
So you've got all these people around the coast of Australia.
Right.
And then a few of us people that were living in the middle of Australia, in rural areas.
Which is really desert, right?
Oh, it's not like that. Like you'd have to go right into the middle of the desert. It's kind of over-exaggerated, all of that.
Okay.
And Australians play it up anyway, you know what I mean? No, it's exactly, it's really similar to the USA, except for you guys have more extremes in weathers. Like you can be in a place, so you go to Woodward East, Pennsylvania, and it's boiling hot in summer and then freezing cold snow in winter.
Yes.
In Australia, we don't have that at all. Like it doesn't get that crazy.
Right.
We do get snow, but you got to go up in the mountains. And then when you come down, it's more like San Francisco when you go down to Melbourne or all of that. You get good summer, but you get a really good full on winter where it's cold and crappy, but we don't get snow there.
Yeah.
So
the market's much smaller.
The market's tiny, man. It's insane. And
a lot less people to work with.
Yeah. And the other thing is there's too many bros that are hooking each other up. So there's not enough, you can't just go and leave this. And it's distributors holding on to three different, so one distributor in Australia might have three different distributors from the USA that they're distributing. So there's less chance for people to get picked up,
Right, because you're basically sponsored. So explain that line.
So the sponsorship in Australia is we're sponsored by distributors. So they're people who buy the boards from the companies in the USA, bring them back, and they get 25% off what their wholesale is in the USA. They bring it to Australia, and then they double the price to the shop, which then doubles the price to us. So a board in Australia now is $130 to $150 Australian.
How much is that in US?
It's probably 85, 90 US
Just for a deck.
just for a deck.
Whoa, that's huge.
Yeah, it's massive. And so we've got that. That's the first issue. Then we don't have volume. You know what I mean? So we might have 200,000 skaters in Australia total.
Right.
And that just can't sustain an industry that's going to be able to pay a skateboarder. So you see, when Australians come to the USA, we have to live here. It's so hard to live in Australia and come back. You look at Shane O'Neill.
Right.
Shane O'Neill was a little kid from Australia that, you know, he came through in a good time. You know what I mean? Like in those early 2000s, there was
prime
money.
time.
There was money. And so he got through it on that. And then he was able to come to the USA and he wasn't looking back, you know, and from the childhood he had, he was like, well, I want to make something of myself. And he's done that. So
Yeah, incredible. Incredible story.
I got a story about him.
I want to hear it. But first tell me about Tampa.
So there's no market in Australia in that sense. And it's very hard. Like all magazines and everything, like, you know, we had 2 magazines and
2 Australian
magazines, Slam Skateboarding and Australian Skateboarding magazine.
Still going or no?
Slam is, but there's another one called The Journal that came out and that was skater owned. I think it still is. And Slam is skater owned now, but again, they're run by the distributors and the companies.
As their way to promote.
Because like what it is, okay, you've got to advertise with us for us to report on you. And it's like, that's not.
Advertise to report on you.
So I'm like, hey, you should do something on my skate park. I got amazing skaters coming through. Let's do something. Oh, well, you should do an ad. And then we'll do something on you. And it's like, well, you know, I'm kind of doing something a little bit different than just the normal skate park because realistically in Australia, I'm the only athlete-owned skate park in that sense. You know what I mean? I'm the only skater-owned skate park in the country. And that's huge. You know, other people have tried to do it and they fail. And I feel bad for them because it's such a cool idea to start your own skate park.
Yeah. And I will attest, it's very, very, very hard to do that.
Yeah. And, you know, we've got 18 staff. I've got teachers. Like a teacher in Australia is minimum $100,000 a year.
Yeah, that's insane. So how do you make that overhead? That's really hard to manage.
You've got and then real estate in Australia is so expensive. Like it's like 4 times the price of what a warehouse is here. It's probably even more than what it is here.
No way.
I swear to God. It's so expensive. So, but getting back to it is like, then I was watching a lot of skating and the skater that resounded with me the most was Mike Frazier. He was just gnarly. He'd just take slams and it wasn't all about 540s and all of that. It was mad lip tricks and he was exciting to watch. And then
he's from Skate Park of Tampa.
So yeah, he grew up here in Florida and like he was part of that. So I was like, okay, where's he skate? He skates Skate Park of Tampa. So I got a flight to the skate park in Tampa. I didn't know it was sketchy. And at the time, it was the second highest rate of homicides in the USA. And coming from Australia, we don't have guns, right? No one has guns.
Yeah.
And like, you know, farmers do and whatnot. But
yeah,
if somebody's got a handgun at their house, it's like, dude, you're crazy. You know what I mean? Like, whereas you're not probably crazy, but it's just like, that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
I fly to Tampa. I get there at like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, where do I stay? And I'm like, all right, the skate parks and this, because it wasn't like I had a phone. Like,
right.
You didn't have phones. Like you had a yellow pages. So I went and found the yellow pages and got the address. It was East Columbus Way in Tampa. So I go to a taxi and I say, hey, can you take me here? And he goes, you sure you don't want to go here? And I'm like, yeah. I didn't know it was like right in the ghetto. Like, because we don't have ghettos like you do here. Like it's not even our ghetto. You'd walk through there at night, no problem in Australia. Like somebody might say something and try and get in your face, but that's about it. It's not like here.
Right.
So I was just like, all right. I get out with my bags and my skateboard and I'm like, yeah, cool. And there's this sketchy hotel and I'm like, all right, it's just on the corner down from the Tampa skate park of Tampa. And I check in. It was $270 for the week. I was like, man, this is cheap. This is cool. So I pay that and anyway, that night I'm like, wow, there's some crazy noises. And then the next night there's gunshots. And so my bathroom was at the back of the hotel. So I went and took my blankets and laid in the bath all night because I'm like, well, if they're going to shoot and it's going to come through the wall, like it's going to only hit the bath. So I slept in there for like 3 nights because every night there was gunshots.
Whoa.
And it's crazy. Like
welcome to America.
Yeah, that was it. Like I was thrown in the deep and I was so scared. But anyway, I'd just go down to the skate park. I'd skate street every day. And then at night I'd wait for Fraser to come and I'd see him like, all right. And I don't think he came for the first 3 days, but like, when I got there, Brian Schaefer was cool as anything to me. He welcomed me and he's like, oh, you're another Aussie? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, all right, cool. You can come and skate this. And I'd pay every day. And then after a few days, he's like, no, you don't have to pay. And I was like, oh, well, how do you keep your business going and all of that? Like, but, he looked after me. And at that time.
So cool.
Yeah, it was. And he didn't need to do that. Like, I'm just this Australian from the other side of the world. And he hooked me up. But, that we'd been going there, like Tuss Pappas and a few other guys, Brad Drury and that, they'd gone. And, so I was just like, all right, cool. Like I'm here. So they looked after me. And then I said, well, what can I do? Can I sweep for you? So I'd sweep the bleachers for him. Like I was like, can I clean anything? Because my dad always told me, you've got to work for everything. And,
yeah.
Dad and I didn't have the best relationship. He used to call me okay Jack because everything was okay. Oh yeah, that'll be fine. Like, and that's how I still am. Like the world could be falling to pieces. I go, don't worry, it's cool. We'll be fine.
It's all okay.
It's all okay.
Like, I'm hiding in the bathtub. Gunshots are going everywhere. I go to the skate park. I see Mike Fraser. It's going to be fine.
That was it. I just needed to skate with Mike because I was like, if I can be around Mike, I can be that good. So I got there and then he started skating and I was blown away how good he was.
Really?
And I was terrible.
So your first time meeting him, what was it like?
He was so nice. Like he was cool. He's like, hey, yep.
Were you like totally fanboy?
Oh yeah, 100%. You got to think like I'm this kid from Australia that's only ever seen him in magazines and they'd come and done a tour through Australia once and I was just like, wow, like he's here, right in front of me.
Yeah.
And then we started skating. And then one day he said to me, and I wasn't very good. Like he said to me, what are you doing here? And like, I was 19, but I must have looked like I was like 26 or 27. I had some growth. I was a bit older. We're a bit rugged from the sun in Australia. And I'm like, I just want to be a pro like you. And he goes, oh dude, you got a lot of work to do. And I was like, yeah, I do. And I go, can you help me? He's like, yeah, all right. He goes, come tomorrow. And he goes, you either make it or slam or I punch you. And I was like, wow, like, all right, cool. But it didn't matter. Like, I was just like, I was that psyched to be there. So I'd go, how do you do this trick? And he'd tell me, or he'd do it. And then I'd try it. And if I knee bailed, he'd be like, what'd they tell you? And I'm like, so I became really sketchy, like, because I just wanted to hang on to everything.
Yeah. And
then I just learned and my learning curve just went through the roof. And within a year, like I couldn't do a 540 or a flip on vert at that stage. And,
right.
And within a year I had that. And then I had
540s and a flip.
And flips.
What flip?
Kick flip indie, cab heel flip, heel flip indie, like all of that. And they were like big tricks back then. This is like late 99. And so I was like, all right, like this is cool. And then he said, oh, look, I can get you into Woodward. And I was like, oh, sweet. So
I didn't even realize Woodward was around back then, but somebody was telling me the other day that they have been a program.
70s, like 74, I think they started. And then the 80s, they brought in BMX and then 90s skateboarding.
Wow.
So they've been flying the flag for a long time, which is, and everyone went through it back in the day.
Shout out Woodward.
Yeah. Oh man, it was crazy. Like, and they looked after us. Like back then they really looked after us, like Gary Ream and that.
Yeah.
But so my first experience, I went there and everyone was like, everyone was cool to me. And Mike had got me in there. So he'd put his name down for me. And he didn't really know me that well. I'd been in Tampa for like 3 months, but I wasn't living in the hotel anymore. I went in one day and Ryan Clements had just come in. He sold his landscaping business and he'd come in as the guy that ran the shop and everything. And then he went on to do everything and now he's at the border. And he really structured what Schaefer had. Like, Schaefer's the dude that's got the ADHD and then Clements was the guy that
really business structural.
So business structural.
So he's doing the border now.
He's doing the border. They had a misunderstanding, fallout, you know what I mean? Like they're both strong personalities. Like Brian's a really strong personality. Love him, man. He gave me so much. And
it sounds like he was like instrumental in your skateboarding career.
Brian was amazing, looked after us. So he took me on road trips. He had a company called Far East at the time, which Zitza was on it, and he gave me boards and everything, and looked after me. And, like that was when I held my first gun with him. Like he was just like, he had me drive into New York City, and we're driving in. And I'm like, dude, I'm on the wrong side of the road. Like I've only had my license for a year. And he's like, oh, it's cool. He goes, if you get in any trouble, just feel under the seat. So I feel under the seat and I pull it up. I'm like, there's a gun. And I'm like, shit. And I put it back under there. And he's like, you need it. And I'm like, Australians don't handle guns, man. You're going to have to handle the gun. He goes, well, if you need the gun, you need the gun. Just pull the trigger and go.
Oh my gosh.
But it was cool. But what happened
training
was when I got to, after about a week of being at that hotel, Clements was there one day and he's like, man, where are you sleeping? And I'm like, oh, I'm at that hotel. He goes, like, you mean the one up there or the one down there? And I go, the one down there. And he goes, that's the sketchy one, man. That's like got the crack whores and all of this. And I go, oh yeah, it's great. It's crazy. They're like one night, some lady was screaming the whole night. And I'm like, he goes, can you cook? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, can you clean? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, you can move into my house. So I lived on his couch for maybe 6 months. And then Fraser got me into Woodward. So we were at Woodward for 3 weeks.
So when Fraser was teaching you, it was land, slam, or you get punched.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of punches.
You did?
Yeah,
He actually punched you.
Yeah, but he's the nicest guy in the world. Yeah, this is a different time. You know what I mean? Like you do that now. If I do that to my kids, like I give him a clip over the helmet now and then or whatever. But it's just like you're looking up to. There's nothing you would do like to be sitting there and going, all right, cool, and getting the information. And at the time, he was like the world's best. And I was just in awe. And yeah, he punched me a few times in the arm, which was
punched you in the arm.
Not in the face, nothing like that. Just give me a crack. Come on, you can do that. And I'm like,
right.
But it was just to get me amped, and I'd get amped and I'd do it. But I'd slam 1,000 times harder than what he hit me.
Right. And imagine just think about the scenario of a young kid flying to another country, going to a skate park where his literal hero is there, and then being like, I need you to teach me. This is like a
imagine doing that with Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I'm a great basketballer. I'm from Australia. Come over, dude. Like, well, you got to do this.
He's like, if you don't make this 3-pointer, I will punch you.
Yeah, I will. Man, it was kind of crazy. But, when you get to that level with guys like that their mindset is like that. You know what I mean? It's all or nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a certain mindset to get to that level.
Yeah, definitely. And he was at that level. And he was just a gnarly skater. Like he just slammed so hard. And I fell in love with that. And it's, people with tattoos, like they love that pain and that feeling. I'm like the same. I love the feeling of slamming, and it's weird. And even at 47, I'll slam now and I go, whoa. And then I get up and go, wow, I feel alive again. And just to know your body can still do it at that age, you know, it's pretty invigorating. And I look at other guys who are 47, I'm like, dude, if you did what I did, you'd be dead. Like you'd be having a heart attack. So
yeah, but there's a certain thing that you go through. I think it's also like physically good.
Yeah.
And also mentally, I think it's very healthy.
Oh, it's so healthy, man. Like, and it reflects onto your kids as well. Like now I've got kids 17, 15, and 12. And
17, 15, and 12.
Yeah. So I got a daughter, Dana, who's 17. She's just finishing her last year of school. Then Jada, who we met, who's a vert skater. And then Van, my son, who's 12, he's a street skater. And they just, I try to put it through to them as well. Like it's hard. Like my son, when testosterone kicks in, it's obviously a lot different, but he's like steps back and he's really more calculated than me and Jada. Jada and I are just like bang, but he's very calculated.
I see Jada going on the vert ramp.
Yeah,
and she will just go for some of these things, and I'm just thinking, I'm terrified.
Man, and this is my little girl. You know, she grew up with little dollies and fairies, and she was like, when she was little, she was like this little pretty model in catalogs, and now she's just this hard ass skater girl that's just
shredder.
Like, I'm gonna do this, and I don't care what you say. And she's in my face about stuff. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, and she takes slams so hard, and she just wants it, and you got to support it. But with my son, he's so calculated, he's so technical.
Yeah,
you know, he's watched a million of your videos, and he just like breaks everything down. And and one time he was skating vert, and he slammed, and he had tears, and he's only 10, and some guy goes, you know, your dad was super hard. Like, you know, you've got to be hard like him. And he just got up and looked at him and kicked his board at the guy and said, that's it, I'm not skating vert anymore. And that was it. But now he's come back and he knows like he can, if he skates vert, it helps him with his perception with things that are speed and bigger handrails and things like that. So
wow,
he started jumping on vert a bit. So yeah, but I got into woodwood, which was amazing because you think about it, I come from a tiny little town we didn't even have a skate park in my town. And then at that stage where I'd moved to, and then all of a sudden I'm at everything with the biggest skate parks and ramps in the world. And then I'm skating with Fraser again, then now Brian Howard and Paul Zitzer, and then Pat Duffy's there. And I was, you know, I ADHD, I was a little crazy and they thought it was fun. And I was young and wanted to be accepted and I was doing crazy stuff. I had, you know, they're like, oh, will you drink piss? And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it for $50. And I got,
oh, no.
Kenny Hughes is like throwing money in. And like, so I did it and I got my money and whatever. But I was just crazy. Like, cause I didn't want to go back to Australia because I found what I loved. And the people were so good. Like, they just
accepted into the,
man, it was crazy. You know, like I'd go on skates to the street course with Kenny Hughes. And a lot of people don't know who Kenny Hughes is now, but at the time he had he was on DC, a big pro on DC, big pro on Element and all of that. And he was the nicest dude. And to come from Australia, like, you know, we've got black people, but like I'd never been friends with a black person in my life in that sense because we're pretty white, you know, other than our Indigenous community. And he was the coolest guy to me. And I was like, wow, like this is pretty cool. And it's just something I hadn't been a part of. And Kenny and I still message to this day. He's such a great guy. And he's always, I love what you're doing and all of that. And then I met like Mike Fraser. He was there. And then Mike Sinclair was there at the same time. And I created this whole network of people, but
all through skateboarding, like this piece of wood with these wheels, it sort of breaks down these boundaries. Talk about that a little bit.
Look, you know, I'm an Australian kid that comes from a tiny little town, and now I've traveled the whole world, and it's all through. And it doesn't matter where I go. You know that you'll be sitting in your house and you hear click, 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 click down the path, and I'd run out and say, oh, there's a skater.
Yeah.
You know, I still to this day I hear skating and I look around. I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. Like this is amazing. And you talk to them no matter what. And you know, like I might see a kid and he's got THEEVE trucks and I go, oh, I invented that. And they're like, what? Like what? You know, those things. Or I see someone with a titanium axle truck and I go, well, I know the guy that told me to do that. And they're like, oh, what? And then I tell them the story which is crazy. But just from this thing that I got when I was 8 years old, a little Veriflex California board it was. And now I'm in California and my whole entire existence is about skateboarding. There's nothing in my life that isn't skateboarding.
Yeah.
Which you probably know too. It drives your partner mental and that's all you talk about. And
it's awesome. And it's incredible,
I love it.
You know, and it's this thing that, you know, like, how do you put it? It's funny. Every skateboarder that especially like a old skater from like that has history, they all say the same thing. Oh, you hear that click, 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 click. You look out the window, instant like friendship.
And you know, you get this thing in your body, you're like, oh, cool. And they get it like you get it. Even though like skating is so accepting, it's so segregated too, but we can talk about that later.
We talk about that.
But I was at Woodward and I was a dish dog, so washing dishes and all of that. And they said, oh, Trevor, you're so good with the kids. Can you be a counselor as well? And I said, yeah, but I don't want to stay in the room with them. And they're like, no, I'd be a counselor. And I said, all right. So I was getting up at 5 o'clock every morning and washing the dishes. And then I'd have to be a counselor all day and then in the bedrooms with them at night, washing dishes at night, then back to the bedroom, getting the kids to sleep. Anyway, this room next to me, this guy couldn't control the kids. And there was one kid, he was like some rich kid that was there the whole time. He's flew in on a helicopter and his parents are off in the Bahamas or whatever. And
Woodward, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, because there was only Woodward, Pennsylvania then.
Right.
Right. And I think Copper Mountain might have been around, right? But, snow, like I wasn't going near the snow. I'm from Australia. So we got to this night, this kid that was in the thing. And I was like 19 and this kid was 17 on camp. And he was kind of my size. And I was like, man, like, and he was just up and he was yelling. And I'm like, man, put this kid to sleep, like make sure he's in. And then he somehow ripped the door off its hinges in the room next to us. And I was like, what the hell? So I was like, that's it. And I grabbed the kid and I threw him down on the ground and dragged him and put him in his bed. I said, you go to sleep or else I'm going to kick the crap out of you.
Yeah.
Right. Because I had to get up. Like it was like 2 a.m. I had to get up in 3 hours and I had no sleep. Anyway, like I ended up missing my duties and I was like, that's it. I'm going to get kicked out for what I did last night. So I just went down to the vert ramp and skated it all day until about 6 o'clock at night. This message thing comes out. Trevor Ward, please come to the camp. The skate director's office.
Please come to the principal's office, Trevor.
It was exactly like that. And I'm like, oh, here it goes. So I just went up there and this guy, he wore orange Oakley glasses. Like they had orange lenses. He was such a dork. But anyway, he goes, dude, I got to let you go. And I'm like, and he goes, this kid's been coming here forever. It's his last year. And like, his parents are worth a lot of money and we can't have you here. And I'm like, oh man, that sucks. I've got nowhere to go. I'm from Australia. So anyway, I just accepted it. And then everyone, like every pro, everyone's like, oh, this sucks. Like, and there was a couple of other Australians, Renton Miller, who was a really prominent vert skater. He was there with another guy, James Kennedy. And they said, oh, you can use our van and just sleep in that. Because we were all going to go to Europe in a few weeks for comps. So I did that. For a couple of days. And then I ended up, we went into Philadelphia and we were partying one night. We're all underage, you got to be 21, but we all had fake IDs. And
fake IDs and drinking.
Yeah. So, so we were having a great time in Philly and Renton's hanging out with this girl and James is hanging out with a girl and I'm just sitting there going, oh man, like what am I going to do? Like I'm figuring, do I go back down to Tampa? Mike Frazier's like, dude, I gave you an opportunity. Like he was the only one that was bummed at me, but I totally understood it.
Yeah.
But he was always like, Frazier's the coolest guy in the world.
Yeah.
And I'd let him down,
Yes.
But
that was probably hard.
It was hard. Like I still I feel bad about that. But Frazier's like, no, it's funny now, But so I'm sitting there and this big dude's like standing there looking at me and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get beat up. Because I always found I was the dude that would always get picked on because I wasn't too big and I wasn't too small. So they go, I beat the crap out of that guy because, he's not too small. And they go, oh yeah, that's all right. But so this big guy comes over to me and he's like, hey. And I'm like, hey. And he goes, hey, do you like that girl? And he was standing next to this hot chick. And I'm like, oh yeah, she's pretty good. And he goes, oh, do you have a girlfriend? And I'm like, no. And then he's like, oh, she wants to talk to you. And I'm like, all right. So I ended up hanging out with that girl for like a month and I stayed at her place and it was an interesting time. I can tell you that. It's probably not good for this podcast.
So he didn't beat you up.
He didn't beat me up, which was good because normally I would get beat up because I always say the wrong thing. And then I ended up hanging out there and all the guys came in and they'd come in on the weekends, Steve Hernandez and Kenny and all of that. And those guys were like using a phone and calling all around the country to all their friends and girlfriends.
Oh, from that girl's house.
Oh
no.
Dude, expensive. Back then it was expensive because it was landline,
Yeah.
And then we went off to Europe and then I came back and I ended up moving out to California with Jesse Fritsch and lived there with him for a while. And then I ended up moving in with Brian Howard and the career just kind of took off because like 99, Hawk did the 900.
Yeah.
Tony did that.
How did that change things?
Wow. Like I had sponsors when I got to America, like I wasn't that good, but then I got good and then I got some sponsors and then, you might have made a couple of $100 a month. And then all of a sudden Tony did the 900 and people don't realize what that did. That brought in money. Like the money that people make these days is directly attributed to what Tony did. So anyone that's talking crap on Tony needs to step back and understand.
He's done so much for skateboarding, more than any other person.
More than anyone. Like, people have, Gonz is one of the most amazing and has done so much. But outside of skateboarding, to bring all those companies in, it's directly attributed to what happened there. Obviously, X Games, and there were some people behind there like Steve Astafan and all of that. They had an idea of where it was going, and Tony was their way to make money, and Tony made a lot of money. And then obviously the game came out, and that just changed
Oh yeah,
everything.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. See, I think this is an intention. They like had to almost make this industry move. Like they were the moving drive behind it.
Yeah, 100%. It had to change. It was growing, but not at a fast enough rate. And then when that game came in, it just changed everything. Like everybody knew about Tony Hawk, and
this was like 2000.
Yeah, 99, 2000. Well, actually, it might have been December 99. I was living with Jesse Fritsch, John Holland, the filmer, lived there as well. And he'd just finished the movie The Reason on Transworld.
Mm-hmm.
And he came home one night and he's like, hey, do you want to watch? And I didn't know John that well because he'd only really just moved into the house too. And he said, oh, do you want to play this video game? And I'm like, what is it? And he goes, oh, I just got it from Tony. Like it's, like it's PlayStation 1. He's like, it's a new game that's coming out. We sat and played that game for hours that night, and it wasn't even out. And we were playing it, and I was like, this is unbelievable. But what happened was I experienced my first earthquake that night, and we were having a beer each, hanging out. And I'm like, next thing I was like, oh. I'm like, what's that? I'm like, I'm going to throw up in this guy's room.
This is
I
in
don't
California.
Even know. Yeah, I was living in San Diego at this stage, and where were we? In Encinitas.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to throw up. Like I'm like doing this, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And then the next thing he looks at me, he goes, oh, did you feel that earthquake? And I'm like, I've never been in an earthquake. It just doesn't happen much in Australia.
Right.
So so that's how I got to do that. But yeah, all this money just got injected in skating. And we were doing demonstrations. Like vert was so accessible in that sense because they could go and sit this vert ramp in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then everyone can see it. It's like this massive stage. And then you see people flying above. And that just gets people in. That's some people's first ever interaction with skating is, especially older people, is seeing vert skating back through that time, through the late 90s and 2000s. Because we were doing demos at universities, in parking lots for.
And how does that work? Some company decides, hey, we're going to do this.
Some marketing company goes, oh, what can we do? Well, let's put a big ramp up here. And then, even at music festivals, that was a big one. We did a lot of tours around the world. There was the Vans Warp Tour, which was massive. And
you guys would get paid to go.
We'd get paid.
Who pays you?
So I guess the promoter, you know what I mean? Or you just get a call and go, hey, we want you on this. And we do it, and it'd be like $1,000 a day, and they'd fly you in, and you might be there for 7 days or something like that.
$7,000 is really good.
Oh, it even got even more than that. Like you might have been 1,500 at some, you know what I mean? And they'd fly you to the other side of the world.
That's really good for right now.
Oh, that's good now. Back then it wasn't. Like there was guys getting more than that for sure. Like I said, I was way down the pecking order. So they'd be calling up everyone, and then they'd finally go, oh, Trevor. All right, we'll call Trevor and get him in.
Give him $1,000 per day.
Yeah. And I'd be like, yeah, sweet. But it was crazy. There was so much money going around then. And then same with sponsorship. Like you'd sign a deal and it'd be just more and more money every year.
But that's wild because like the money, I guess maybe it was less companies, more consumers.
Yeah, I there was a lot of companies. You couldn't just do companies how you do now, but there were. But I think that video game just helped so much in that sense. There was such an influx. It went from being really small to just being so massive, and you went from earning nothing to. They were passing on the money because they were earning so much money,
right?
Especially companies like Element, like Johnny Schillereff was making. Well, he ended up selling it to Billabong, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure he made a heap of money in that sense. And it's money that people just don't understand because you don't see it now. Like, I talked to Alex Perelson and he came through he was like a 17-year-old when we were in our prime, and he was making some money then. And he's just like, oh man, I can't make a career out of it. And then he asked me like, how much were you making a year? And like some of those years we make $200,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Crazy.
It's crazy. So it was contest money. You're getting matched by sponsors. And that was me.
Yeah.
So you think about Bucky and Bob and those guys, and they were on the game. Like I'm hearing about checks that they're getting every quarter for $300,000. And you're just like, what the heck? Like,
from the game, yeah.
That's just from the game, but that's not even there. Bucky might have won 4 comps in a row, which was $10,000 a comp, and then he's got 5 sponsors matching that $10,000.
Right.
I'm just assuming that's what it was because we got matched, and we're talking about Bucky and Bob and Pierre Luc and those guys,
right?
Rune Glifberg, you know what I mean? and then you've got the street guys on top of that, Rowley and all of that, like Jamie Thomas. They were just
legendary. So good. So cool.
Yeah.
But what a time period.
It was crazy. There was that much money, and there was so many pros. Like there's a heap of pros now.
Yeah.
And they're nowhere near as good as the guys these days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's fascinating. But the I don't know if, I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know if sponsors now are doing the match thing.
No,
I don't think that happens. And I don't think that there's like, I don't think they're getting that much money. It's pretty interesting.
That one is interesting. I think, look, I've had a lot of conversations and I see it from both sides, having been a business owner with products and I see how hard it is. But I also
so hard.
But I also see the other side going, okay, well, has your life changed? You know what I mean? Like from back then, because some people's lives haven't changed. You know what I mean? Like when all the money was there, they've still got that same lifestyle.
Right.
And then they wonder why their businesses don't succeed.
Yeah, because there's overspending more than they should. It's really, you have to be a genius financial manager.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And especially when it contracts, like you got to.
Oh, it's so hard. And it's so painful.
Well, you know, like I guess over COVID, you guys would have boomed, you know what I mean? And then it just contracted so much, you know?
Yeah. Well, skateboarding went through this interesting time period where like 2020, there was like a international shortage of raw materials because so many people wanted skateboards.
Yep.
Didn't matter what it was, didn't matter the graphic, anything you had, blanks would sell instantly. Now, so then what happens is you buy all these boards. So I messed up actually. I got all the inventory and I literally got a second warehouse.
To put it all in.
Yes, to put it all in.
So you overextended.
So I overextended. Oh my gosh. And now I have this warehouse. I'm in a 5-year lease. Yep. And what do? I got no choice. I have to handle it. Yeah, I have to make it work. It's just very, very hard.
Yeah, that was after me having a hard goods business. Like with our skate shop, I don't even rely on selling product because you're going to be undercut everywhere around the world. And it's not like the romantic days of like where a skater had one graphic that was iconic. We just don't have that anymore. So there's no shelf life left to it. It comes in, it's gone. You know what I mean? There's millions of graphics. How many pro boards do you have in your career? Some guys have hundreds, you know?
Right.
And maybe might have one iconic one, but I can't even name one these days. You know what I mean? For the latest
the one
price.
that I think has happened recently is Andy Anderson.
Oh, definitely. That thing, well, you think about where it's come from, the house of iconicness, you know what I mean?
House,
and
that's legendary.
Yeah, and that's the only way it works. And Andy Anderson has transcended that in a lot of ways. Like his skating, his personality, the fact he can wear a helmet, everything, which you've got to take your hat off to that because people are too scared to be unique.
Yeah.
People are way too scared to be unique.
That's true.
I'm unique and I get cut down and called out for it all the time. People hate me. And then you call them up and go, hey, I heard you said this. And they're like, oh, no, I didn't say that. And it's like, oh, bullshit. You said it. Like, just be a man, stand up and say it and let's talk it out. I'm cool. I'm not going to beat you up. Like, but if you're going to keep saying it, I'll just send you a legal letter and we can sort it out like adults, you know?
Cease and desist.
Well, people like don't like that. You know what I mean? Like they can go and hide behind a keyboard and all of that, which is a hard part of the world, like, so deal with.
Yeah. Well, now you have social media and all these things, and it's really intense. What's going on, everybody? I want to take a second to tell you about Audible, the #1 platform for audiobooks, podcasts, and more. With Audible, you have access to over 400,000 titles, including one of my favorites, Shoe Dog, the story of the Nike owner, Phil Knight. As a small business owner and skater, it was so interesting to see what he went through in building the Nike empire and how it all started. This is an inspiring and motivating story, and I would recommend it to anyone. The way Audible works is amazing. With Audible Plus, you get instant access to thousands of audiobooks, sleep guides, and podcasts for just $7.95. Yours to enjoy as a subscriber, or you can upgrade to Audible Premium Plus and get everything included in Audible Plus, plus one additional audiobook every month, yours to stream, download, and keep forever, even if you cancel your subscription, which is easy to do. but trust me, you won't want to. There are many amazing books on Audible, and as a listening viewer of the Braille Drop, you can download a free audiobook today that's yours forever, whether you subscribe or not. Just go to thebrailledrop.com/audible to sign up for a free 30-day trial and receive one free audiobook that's yours to keep. Doing so really helps support the show. That's thebrailledrop.com/audible to get a completely free audiobook on Audible. Thanks, and now back to the show. The other thing that I want to point out about like hard goods is like, let's say, well, the price of skateboards hasn't changed.
No.
It doesn't matter. The inflation goes. I think they actually got cheaper.
Well, they did in Australia. They got like down to about 90 to 100 Australian dollars, but now they've gone back up.
Right.
Like they've gone to $30 to $40 up.
Right. And in the US, like I remember when I was a kid, I would go into the skate shop, it was $50.
Yeah.
And you go into the skate shop now, it's $50. But when I was a kid, you go buy a hamburger. It's not
the same.
It's not even close.
Food in the USA has gone through the roof.
It's insane.
It's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe food in the USA's gone up through the roof, but beer's still the same price roughly. And beer and cigarettes are pretty much the same, but food's gone up. It's like food should be kept down, and beer and cigarettes, like, you know, to buy beer and cigarettes is like $50 to buy a packet of cigarettes. It's insane. So, which is good. It's a good deterrent in that sense, you know, because I don't.
Right.
Yeah. But,
the kids don't do the beer, don't do the cigarettes, don't do the drugs, do not do the drugs.
Man, keep away from that. I've got too many friends who died from that. It's ridiculous. But yeah, so my skating, I just did the comp series for years. And then 2007, I started hanging around with a guy, and he's like, hey, we should make a truck company. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. That sounds good. And he goes, oh, my dad invented titanium golf clubs. And I was like, okay, well, let's make one of titanium. It's twice as strong and half the weight. So we came up with a one-piece titanium hanger truck. And I remember going, oh, well, this is big. And at the time I was getting trucks from Independent and all of that. And I was like, hey, we should do, Indy should do that. So I showed a couple of guys there, and they're like, oh, no, you stick to skating and we'll stick to business. And I was like, all right. So they kind of sat on the back burner for a bit. And the guy I was doing it with, he owned a belt and wallet company in Australia. And he tried to get into skateboarding, but he was a total kook.
Yeah.
It wasn't a skater. He was a nice enough guy, but at the same time, I guess I was preying on him because I need to get paid. You know what I mean? And I was skating in it. And in my time of being sponsored, which is something I don't really bring up a lot, is I was on Nike, and it went from Nike to Nike SB. And when it went to SB, Sandy Bodecker got involved, and with the ties of being Australian, Kathy Freeman, the runner, and she lived kind of near where I lived in Australia. Yeah. We got along pretty well. And then he started educating me about marketing and things like that. So I was
within skateboarding, marketing in general.
Just marketing in general, but within skateboarding, it's the same thing. Why did Nike win? People always
talk about that, because there was a time period in skateboarding where Nike was shunned out of the industry, completely hated, and then they just came back and I
got kicked off a core board sponsor for going and riding for Nike.
What company?
I'm not going to tell you what the company was, but it was a very core board sponsor, and they basically said,
yeah, if you're going to ride for Nike, you're off of this team. Yeah, that's the way it was.
Well, I was like, well, you guys pay me nothing, and these guys are going to pay me $5,000 a month.
Right.
So which are we doing? At the time I was like, well, one day I want to have a house, I want to have kids and all of that. I was thinking like that. Most skaters probably don't think like that. I was a skate rat too, but it gets to a point where you get sick of sleeping on couches. You want your own house and things like that. And at the time I was renting, and I was like, and there was a few of us in the house, and then I kicked them out because I just want my own house. Yeah. And then I have a girlfriend, and then all of that. So I did that, and it was crazy because you know what? I rode for Reef Shoes.
Yeah.
And Mike Sinclair was the team manager, and Mike's the coolest guy if you know him and you're on the right side. I'm sure people are like, oh, dude's a dick, you know what I mean? And I get it. Like, I get how he can rub, like me, I rub people the wrong way. But he and I get along and have got along for a long time, you know. Anyway, I went back to Australia and I told the team guy in Australia, I said, oh, look, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be with you guys for, but like we can work something out. But I was pretty certain I was going to go to Nike, and then
from Reef Shoes.
From Reef Shoes, because Reef was a big player for a while, and they had Diego Bashiri, like the butcher, like
shout out the butcher,
So and then Jaya Bondarov, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, so they had them, and then they had a really cool team like Jason Ellis and Sandro, Buster Holderman, Paul Zitzer, and they looked after us pretty good, which was great. And I remember saying to the team manager, what happened was RP Best he was at Duff's at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, he's like the CEO now of Dwindle. And he said to me, he goes, look, I'll give you some Duff stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. So I was like wearing Duff shoes and I shot a photo in it, and it came out in a magazine. And here I've got a Duff shirt on and Duff shoes. And I get this call saying, hey, you're wearing Duff stuff. That's it. You're done. And I'm like,
from Reef.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm actually about to, I just signed the deal with Nike, and I'm like, I'm actually going to Nike. And he's like, oh, you're such a sellout. And I'm like, dude, you're a surf brand. Like, why are you calling me a sellout? Like, how does that happen? So that was kind of funny. And I was like, all right, cool. And that guy, Keith, he's great to me to this day. But I guess it rubbed people the wrong way. And then I was skating around and people were like, oh, dude, those shoes suck. Like, what are you doing? And I had all the dunks.
What was the, what people just hated it because it was like, don't let corporate America.
Yeah. And Consolidated, I love what they do. That makes me laugh. You know what I mean? I think it's good to make fun of things. You know, people take things too serious. I don't
agree.
The whole world's gone crazy now with too much seriousness. And, I was just like, that's funny. It makes me laugh. And
Consolidated ran a whole ad campaign called Don't Do It.
Don't do it. Yeah.
That's what it was
called the Drunk Low.
Yeah.
That's what the shoe, the Drunk Low. And I had a banana on the side as the swoosh. And
Drunk Low, don't do it.
Yeah.
Anti-Nike.
It was cool, man. And that's skateboarding, and that's what it always should be.
Yeah.
But
you have the different sides, the different viewpoints.
Yeah, and
pretty wild.
It's like the whole Olympic thing. Everyone's and X Games was the same. I've seen it. It happens the whole way through.
Yeah.
Anyway, Nike came in, but Nike was smart. They could have gone and got the biggest names in the world. But they didn't. They went and got people like myself. Chet Childress was on, Reese Forbes, Danny Super, a heap of people, and we're just like, all right, this is cool, but it wasn't in anyone's face. It didn't hurt anyone. Reese Forbes, I think he was like the team main guy.
Yeah.
And he drove it really good. He was really smart with it.
So they picked a good team manager.
Yeah.
That sort of put together a team that didn't ruffle any
ruffle any feathers. They weren't the people anyone was really looking at, but they did. But what they did was they created the groundswell. They were giving shoes out in every town.
Right.
And they had the money to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a fascinating thing.
Now, they didn't want to win back in 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
They didn't even want to win in 2010. 2020 was when they wanted to win. Because you think about this, my era grew up with Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
I had Jordans all the time, right? I'd work my butt off, get a pair of Jordans, or that's all I'd get for my birthday, right? Because they were super expensive in Australia.
And super cool. And Michael Jordan
he's the best thing ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go and watch The Last Dance. I've watched that a few times. It's just that's what it was. He was just this freak. And everything associated with him was amazing. So, and that was the youth culture when I grew up. You know what I mean? There was skating and all of that, but that was the world youth culture. Right. Then Nike, when that went in the late 90s or mid to late 90s, Nike had nothing in the culture.
Right.
So what was the next culture that they need to get into? They knew it was skateboarding. That was the next thing that was taking off.
Really?
And
so they saw this thing sort of
Sandy
growing.
Bodecker did. And because he was involved in, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. in football, soccer in Europe, and Nike wasn't very big over there because obviously Adidas was massive, right?
Right.
Now Nike's huge because he went to all the lower clubs. He didn't try and get the pinnacle. He went and did the groundswell. So the idea is if we can get someone to buy the product, like you're the king of this, right? You get people into the sport and you get them on your brand, then you've got loyalty forever. You know what I mean? And this is what the industry doesn't realize is you're the best marketer in the world in that sense to skateboarding. They think going and getting the next big thing is what we need to do. It's not. It's if you can capture that one kid and you can market to him and talk to him then at 6 years old, you can get them right through to when they're 30. You know what I mean? Because they've always got that love for it. You know what I mean? Oh, where'd my first board come from? Well, if it was a Braille board, guess what? Doesn't matter if anyone thinks that Aaron Cairo is a kook.
Because he is a kook.
That's just like me. I'm a
Aaron
super
Cairo
kook.
is a kook.
I'm a super kook. But it's like, it doesn't matter if they're a kook or not. That is your first board. You've got that relationship. So that's what Nike did. They identified that's the market. You go and get them then and you grow with them. So you grow with them for 20 years. It's like the whole Quicksilver Billabong thing.
Right.
Quicksilver Billabong, Rip Curl, like they were massive, but now 50-year-old and 60-year-old, 70-year-old men wear that clothing. Kids don't want to wear it. So they're now trying to figure out how do we get these kids again. And that's why Billabong went and bought like Ruka and all of those brands.
Oh,
Element,
okay. So I didn't know that.
So they could then drive them through as well, that next generation. But Nike is timeless. Like it just doesn't age. It's got an amazing feel in everything it does. It's always renewing itself. So they knew that they had that, but they need to capture this. So they work on that market more than they work on this market. And that's how they got into the market. And while everyone was chasing Nike going, I need to do runners now, I need to do this. You remember DVS? They were huge.
Yes.
And DC, they'd have 80 SKUs and it's like, why are you doing this?
Right.
You don't need to do that. Skaters don't need you, because what happens, they're trying to get everyone else. It's like, and while they were looking here and there, they lost their core. And that's why Etnies, like how many DVS is gone. Who else is gone now? Dust is gone. The audio's gone. Yeah. All these companies are gone because they're trying to do everything that they're not good at.
Well, then there becomes this interesting thing of like the story that I know of Nike is they tried to get in, they got pushed out.
Yep.
And then all these companies went under. And then a lot of people are blaming. They're saying corporate America ruined skateboarding. They came in and smashed it. And then Nike goes, we're just going to overtake everybody and offer everybody huge money. So that's the Nike story that I know. And I don't even know if that's correct.
I think that is part of it. The other part is how they manage shops, right? So like I was with Nike for 6 years, and then the other part is how they manage retailers. And that's how all companies work. They go, well, we need this much space if you want our
they
shoes.
Demand you buy a certain number.
Yeah. So
that's insane to me.
So all of a sudden you need to reach your quota of sales, right? And so we got to reach those quota of sales a year, or else we're not going to be with you anymore. And they bump it up, right? It's because they need to meet their quotas as well, right? So they're bumping it up. Well, I know I need Nike in my store because that's what sells.
Yes.
Well, all of a sudden Globe's gone. You know what I mean? I don't do Globe anymore. Now I don't do DVS.
Because you don't have the capital to even buy the
I don't have
inventory.
And you know what? All of a sudden, like I'm in debt to Nike. I might as well just hold Nike now. And they'll give me longer terms because they can, whereas these smaller companies can't.
Yeah.
But you know,
it's a brutal business move.
It is brutal, but it was smart.
Yeah. So I read Phil Knight's book, Shoe Dog.
Oh my God.
And it just made me like, that was what I was going to say about skateboarding. The other thing, like the price of a skateboard has not changed. So you buy a skateboard for a really good high quality skateboard from Paul Schmidt. Shout out Paul Schmidt. You're the best. $16.
Yep.
And now you're going to sell that board for, let's say, $50.
Yep.
So you made some money.
Yep.
But now if you sell 100 skateboards in order to expand and grow your business, now you need 200 skateboards.
Yep.
So the 16 very quickly turned into 32.
Yep.
And then you go, then you add in the marketing dollars. How much money does it take to drive somebody to your website to sell the board or to your shop if it's in person? There is nothing left over.
There's nothing.
And then you go, well, now I need to pay pros. I need to there's marketing dollars that need to go in there. And it becomes this wild, fascinating ride.
Oh,
and I thought like, I'm just a terrible businessman. And then I read this book with Phil Knight and he's like, he was selling millions of pairs of shoes.
Yep.
And then he explains in that book, he's like, I didn't make any money.
Yep.
He had a paycheck. He had a salary.
Paycheck.
But he was in huge debt.
People don't realize that they went broke like so many times trying to get there.
Yes.
And I have this argument with my partner all the time because she's from the banking world, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just this cowboy. And I see things totally different. I'm like, we just keep going, right? And she's like, how are we going to make this much money by this day? And I go, don't worry. We'll make it happen. And we do all the time.
Yeah.
But she's stressing. She goes, well, we need to pay this. And I'm like, don't worry about that. Like, I'll call those people and sort them out.
Yeah.
We need to do this now. And that's what he did. He was robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yes.
And
100%.
then maybe, and
sometimes even loan from this bank to pay this bank. And then it would just go in the circle.
So you know how the shoe thing works, right? The shoe thing is the reason why they all went under was because they couldn't service the loans and they weren't getting loans again. So what happens is one shoe company that went broke, I had a meeting with them because I got a lot of investment and I sat down with one of the guys from there and he's like, hey, we need $200,000 to get all these shoes off the dock. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, off the dock. The shoes are made, paid for wherever they were made on the boat. I've been there. It's painful.
And because it's a lot of money that you got to pay customs. So it's $200,000, right? It was something around that they needed. And they had no more money. And this company was going to be bought for $150 million 2 years earlier by Billabong, and they chose not to do it. I bet you they're kicking themselves now.
Yeah.
Which I feel bad for, right? You know what I mean? Like I always say, hey, if somebody hits me up for money for my company, like I'm ready to go. You know what I mean? And I can always create something else. You know what I mean?
You're ready to sell?
Yeah, if it's enough money, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
150. If somebody coming offered me 150 million, and I go, oh, but I could get 200.
Yeah.
Saying I can get 200 is like the million thoughts that go through your head every day. Like one thought might be going, oh, I'm the hottest guy on the earth. The next thought can be, I want to kill myself. Yeah. Right? You take the hottest guy on the earth and you leave. You know what I mean? Like, so the 150,000 is the real thing. You know what I mean? Like 150 million is the real thing. And they didn't do it. So anyway, I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of interesting. And then my brain switched in and it's like, well, what happens if you guys don't get the 200 grand? And they go, oh, we go under. And I go, cool. All right. I'll give you the 200,000. I didn't have 200,000 at that stage.
Sure.
But I was willing to invest, and because we had the money coming from my other brands. I'll give you the 200 grand, but I need 50% of your company.
Right.
And he's like, no. And I go, well, if you don't, you just told me you're going bankrupt. Oh, but I just need you to help me back. We can pay it back with 10% interest. I go, I'm not a bank. If I want this, I'm going to, and we were at the time, like I'd started my company. I started licensing a few brands and I was aggressive. I was a bit of an asshole with it. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I'm going to become the biggest distributor. And it's just, and they're gone now. You know what I mean? And it just sucks because it was a cool brand that supported shoe company.
What company was it?
DVS.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I loved it too. I was like, I wish I could have, but I was a jerk too. You know what I mean? It was.
Well, look, I understand.
You feel like a jerk. I look back and feel like a jerk, but at the time, you make business decisions are a lot different than friendship decisions. And like the only friendship I had with that person that I was talking to was the fact that I thought they were an amazing skater.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? And
DVS is an iconic brand, iconic, amazing. And this is the kind of thing that it sucks to see them go down.
Yep.
And then I see all these brands and then I just go, I feel like my personal responsibility in this
Yeah.
is I need to get so many more people. Like I love cliche
So we can support
skateboards.
them.
We need to get
Cliche's
so many
gone.
more people in so that it can be supported. Like why can't we just have so many skaters
We can.
that cliche is rolling, DVS is rolling.
Yep.
But then there are intricate insider business details that you're never going to know about.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, we borrowed this money from so-and-so and we messed up. And I mess up all the time.
Oh, same here. Like, shoot.
The learning curve is, I feel like running a business is much like skateboarding.
Yeah, it's a huge learning curve all the time.
Yeah.
You're learning. And, you piss people off. You
And
annoy
you
people.
slam and you have to get back up.
Yep.
And like you were saying, I also have the finance person on
Yep.
my back all the time.
Yep.
Aaron, well, there's like, there's not enough money this month to pay the bill. I'm like, we'll keep going.
Yeah, we'll keep going.
How we're continuing to go sometimes, I'm like, fascinating, amazing.
Man, I'm the same. I just kind of go, okay, you've got to be optimistic.
Yeah.
And you've got to be, and like you said, the Shoe Dog, like Phil Knight, that was an amazing book. And
Amazing story.
It just tells you how much you've got to risk to be able to get somewhere.
Right.
And, there's so many businesses, but everyone looks at it and, we can sit here and look at a big company like Deluxe. It's not that big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You go
in the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of things, it's not that big at all. And go, oh, well, they need to be doing this and they need, then they're supporting skateboarders and skateboarding. And people are like, oh, well, screw them, screw this. And the more you get to know somebody like Jim THEEVE, he's the most humble, nicest guy around. You know what I mean? And we've been at heads together, you know what I mean, over the years. But that's just what it is. But if you can't grow like in maturity, like I'm a 47-year-old man, like I said, and if you can't grow in maturity and look at somebody that was an amazing skateboarder, founded companies and has given so much to skateboarding, then your head's up your bum. You know what I mean? Like,
like show the respect.
Yeah, you got to show some respect. But there is another part to that which needs to show respect back too. Which doesn't happen a lot, as you're aware of. So that's the whole shoe thing is that they buy shoes and then they come up with their shoe line, then they go and get money from the bank. The bank gives them that money, and then they have they've got maybe a certain amount of time to pay back that money before they have to go and get more money from the bank to pay for their next shipment of shoes, right? So they never have the money.
It's like a Ponzi scheme.
It's a total Ponzi scheme, yeah. So they do that, and that's where they get themselves in a lot of trouble. And shoes only have a 3-week shelf life. So after 3 weeks, they've got to be discounted effectively.
Really?
Well, that's
shop.
That's how it used to be because there's so many new shoes coming in.
Oh my gosh.
But if you look at Nike, they only had like 4 shoes.
Yeah.
Right? So they'd have 4 shoes, but they might be 30 colorways in one shoe. Whereas Nike would have, or where other shoe companies would have 80 different things, and they might have to open up new soles and things like that, which are $30,000 to do.
Yeah.
So they're wasting all this money on R&D, whereas Nike are like, oh, we've got this one thing and we're just going to keep pumping it. You know, the
here's the new color. Oh, the Janoski was
oh my God, still going to this day.
Yeah. Unbelievable story.
Unbelievable. So, and that's getting back to Nike, and back to Shane O'Neill. So when I was skating vert one day in a place called Hoppers Crossing in Melbourne, the guy that filmed me was this guy, the VB man, right? So VB's a beer in Australia, and he was like always had a VB shirt on, big red beard, like nicest guy in the world. I love Tom, right? He's a full vegan now, skinny as anything. He changed his whole life, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, anything like that, and amazing. Like, I guess after COVID, everything changed for him, and his health is just number one, and he's amazing. Heart of gold too. And so he was filming, and he said, hey, there's this kid down there that you should look at. And at the time I was on World Industries and Nike. And I said, I go, all right. So I look and I'm like, wow. And he's this short little kid, he's got a flat head. Like, it's like, seriously, you could sit a beer on top of it. And he's short, and he's like this little stocky kid. And I'm like, wow. And I go to him, I go, what's your name? And he goes, Shane. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, and then everyone's like, no, his name's Nugget. That was his nickname, Nugget.
Shout out Shane O'Neill.
Anyway, so I was talking to him, and I had a manager at the time. It was a friend, Frankie Kersnos, and he's the coolest guy in the world. And he did my deal with Nike. And I said, hey, we need to get this kid on Nike in Australia. And he's like, and Lewis Marnell and me were the only two Australians on at that time.
Yeah.
And I said, we've got to get him on 100%. And they didn't want him. There was a guy, Danny Hopkins, that was there. And
because why?
Well, he was a 13-year-old kid and they didn't realize 13-year-old kids could be good skaters.
Right.
So I just said, well, I'm not going to ride for you if you don't put this kid on.
Oh, no way. You put your foot down.
I always do.
Because you believed in them that much.
Oh, you can just see people.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this kid's amazing, right?
He's unbelievable.
And he was 13. And at that time, people weren't doing frontside flips and things like that. And I was like, this kid's going to be good. So we got him on.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of talking to get him on. He's got a shoe now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And he had offers from other companies, I'm sure, and he stayed true to it. And he's got a shoe, and well done to Shane, man. It's the best thing I ever seen.
Amazing.
So we found out, put him on World Industries, and you know what he did with his first paycheck from World Industries? Well, he saved up. He went and got braces.
No way.
Yeah, for his teeth. So because he came from a pretty underprivileged family in Australia, and he did everything he could to get out of it. And that's a big thing. He really pushed himself, and he had amazing people around him. Like Midzi came in, and he ended up being the team manager of Nike in Australia, and did a lot of real good stuff there. And then,
but he used skateboarding to get out of that rough scene.
Man, he used it. He went all the way, man. It's
See, that's the story that I love the most. And I also think I just like to highlight the positive aspects of skateboarding and the lessons that it teaches a person.
Taught him so much. You think he was a 13-year-old kid. And I also got him on Quicksilver at the time. My friend James Kennedy, who I mentioned earlier, he was the team manager. I said, hey, you've got to put this kid on. And I remember we were taking him on trips everywhere, right? And we're doing vert trips, and he'd come along and skate the street and then maybe jump on the vert ramp and whatever. And we're filming, so we'd film him as well. And then we're like, this is weird. We don't even ask his parents. He just turns up with a handful of money. So anyway, we went over and we saw his mom, knocked on the door, and she's just like, oh, this is who I am. He's just embarrassed and, or whatever it was as a young, I'm talking 14, 15-year-old kid. And she was just giving him money to go and do what he did. And he ended up moving in with his grandmother, and he became the Shane O'Neill, the legend that he is, not little nugget that he was.
So amazing.
Yeah. So that was Shane O'Neill. And another Nike kid. I started doing skate lessons in the local skate park, and this little girl came down, and she was tiny, Mongo pushing. She had this purple helmet, I think, or green helmet that sat up. And first lesson, I said to her parents, I go, what sport's this girl playing? They go, oh, she does everything. And I'm like, yeah, well, her dad was a really well-known rugby player in Australia.
Oh, really?
A famous rugby player. And this little girl was Chloe Covell. And
Chloe the Flow.
Chloe the Flow. Go follow her. And she's amazing, man. From that day, I was like, I go, give up all the other sports and just focus on this. But she didn't. She's a state runner, things like that. She's just but she's the tiniest little girl.
Yeah.
And she just loves skateboarding. And then
I met her at the Do Tour, and I was like, you guys are amazing. Just incredible.
She is incredible. She works so hard, and she just loves it. And yeah, she just did lessons with me for 3 years. And I remember her mum calling me one day going, hey, look, I know you're moving the skate park to a different part of town. It's a bit far away. Can you still do lessons with Chloe? And I said, you know what? I can't. And I go, and you know what? She's kind of outgrown me. And she went off with another guy, and then she ended up with Tommy Finn. And Tommy Finn's just done an amazing job with her now. So
coaches her.
Just works with her flat out. So
wow.
And she comes to our skate park now and then and whatnot. But she just got second in Rome at the comp there.
Yeah, amazing.
It's amazing. And I remember she was 7 in class with kids that are 12 and 13, and we're doing lessons, and I'm trying to teach them kick flips, and a couple of kids are trying to get it, and she's got no clue. But because she was such a Mongo pusher, all her weight was in the opposite way, and she could ollie it, switch. Okay,
so she learned switch flip before regular kick flip. Now she's doing 50-50s on round rail, kick flip out.
Yeah, she's I guess she doesn't have any fear. She didn't when she was little either. You know what I mean? She just tried anything, and that was really cool. It was really cool. Like,
And you were able to spot that in her.
oh, straight away.
Even though she wasn't necessarily doing the craziest tricks.
No, she just, there's an energy with people.
Yeah.
And you feel it. And, it's like, it's weird. Like I get along with everybody. I'm pretty good, but I say things how it is and it rubs people the wrong way. But with but with kids, it's different. Like, kids have a raw energy and you can feel it and you can see where they're going and what they want. And she just has that energy. And it's like, there's so many skaters that I've been around that are like that.
Yeah.
They may not even talk. Like Shane O'Neill doesn't talk a lot, but he had an energy about him when he was there. And when you skated, like he commanded you to watch him and you wanted to watch him, but like he didn't say anything or do anything. You just had that energy. And she was the same. She's this little girl that was a ball of energy. And she always like, Trev, try this. And she was fun to skate with too. So, and she just, every time she come back, there's new tricks. And it just annoyed everyone else. And that's what I kind of like too. It made me laugh. Like, I like those kids, you know what I mean? Like, bundle of energy, just want to learn everything and get there. So,
yeah, and I think skateboarding gives them a good outlet. You know, you can be like, oh, this person has ADHD, mental illness, blah, 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 blah. But let's just give them a skateboard and let them go wild.
Well, that was what my mum did. Like my mum, I played so many sports when I was little because I was ADHD. Like I was off my head like crazy. And she would have me playing T-ball. This is when I was really little, T-ball. And then I'd go to basketball that night, but in between I'd skateboard.
Yeah.
And I'd do that all the time. And I'd go and play. Then as I got older, it was baseball. And I played baseball in the morning, AFL in the afternoon, and then I'd skate all night.
Yeah.
And it was good and it kept me in check. I was never medicated.
Yeah, that is so important.
Yeah.
Like, get your physical exercise, get your mental exercise. I think there's something very mentally healthy to being like, this thing is really scary.
Yep.
I'm going to try this trick that I could get really hurt.
Yep.
And then I do it and I land it and it's just, it's incredible. There's nothing like it.
Well, when I started, so with my career, like I finished, I didn't really finish my skating until about 2014, 15, but I was saying that I came up with this truck company and we needed funding because like I had money, but I didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah. THEEVE trucks.
THEEVE trucks. So we came up and there was a kid in Australia. His name was Mitch Robertham. He's a really good skater. Ricky knows him.
Yeah.
He grew up skating with him. And I said, hey, I was driving him home. I said, I'm coming up with this truck company and I need a name. And he goes, oh, you should call it THEEVE. I was all right. Because like it was kind of a play on Australians are all convicts, we're thieves and all of that. So, we came up with THEEVE. And I remember going to people, one of my friends said, oh, you should get investment. And so this guy that I did the company with, he's like, yeah, we're going to get investment. And anyway, we went to these investors, venture capitalists, and they said, well, we wanted $4 million. He said, if you guys get the biggest name skateboarder and the biggest distributor in the world, we'll give you the $4 million. We can get it. I was like, okay, well, that's Reggie Barnes from Eastern Skate Supply. If people don't know who that is, like he pretty much funds every skate company that's out there. And still to this day, like he's got a multi-million-dollar company that works off 25%. Like it's insane. Whoa. And he's probably one of the smartest business people. And
Reggie Barnes, Eastern Skate Supply.
The nicest guy in the world. Like,
come on the podcast, Reggie. Let's go.
Oh, Reggie, you got to come. Nicest guy, the best guy. So I hit Reggie up, sent him an email. I hadn't spoke to him ages because he'd do demos down at the surf trade show down in Florida, and he'd always hook us up with demos and that. So I sent him an email from Australia going, hey, Reggie, like I've got this new company, check it out. It's a one-piece titanium truck. We're doing this other one, this titanium axle truck and whatnot. So we did that, sent that through, and seriously, like 3 hours later, I get an email back. Now, if you know Reggie, he doesn't like emails. He likes to talk on the phone, and he emailed me back. And Jocelyn, his partner, I think they're married. She, I remember when I met her, she goes, he never emails anyone. So he's stuck his neck out for you. He believes in what it is. He said to me, we were the hottest brand he thought since Zero skateboards.
Really?
Yeah. And
THEEVE trucks.
When it first came out, like he was like, and I showed him everything we were doing and he was blown away. So, but when we came over, we went to Black Box, which was Zero,
Yep.
Fallen, Mystery, Slave, they used to do trade shows. And so we flew over from Australia and we just walked around the trade show, and I was meeting a few people. And Brian Howard, who was the international sales manager at Fallen at the time, he was one of my best friends. And I said, oh, you should want to come into this company. So he had a look at it and he was like, oh, this is pretty good. And I had a meeting with Reggie coming up too down at, I think, ASR, or what was the other one that came after that? I'd like to think. I can't think. Anyway, it might have been ASR. Anyway, we went down there. In between that time, between the Black Box trade show and ASR, my good friend Jesse Fritsch is like, oh, you should come over for a barbecue. And I'm like, yeah, all right. And so I went over. I think I stayed there. But anyway, Tony was there. Tony Hawk was there for the barbecue.
Tony Hawk, the biggest name in skateboarding.
Right, and you got to think, right? So this is a crazy story for me. I love Tony Hawk. Like, I'm from a tiny, obviously I love Mike Frazier. I talked about that. But Tony Hawk, he's the biggest name and the most amazing skater that I've ever seen in my life. And he's just iconic. And from a kid, I had posters all over my wall. All I ever wanted to meet was Tony Hawk. He came to Australia in 1991 with Bucky Lasek, Frankie Hill, and him. And I watched those two skate vert. I was just like, wow. And only thing I ever said to Tony was like, how do you do 540 to go spin? And I go, well, how do you do 720 to go spin faster? And I was like, that didn't help me. You know what I mean? Like, at all. But I was just so in awe to talk to him. You know what I mean? I had the long hair, all of that. But anyway, I walk in and I'd got to know Tony over the years from being a vert skater. He goes, hey, what are you doing back in town? And I'm like, oh, I've got a new truck company. He goes, oh yeah. And I showed him. And he's like, wow, like, this is really cool.
You brought the truck to the barbecue.
Well, it was in the car.
Yeah.
But, so it was in the car and I got it out and I showed him. He's like, wow, and Kevin Starb was there. And if you've ever met Kevin Starb, he'd be a great person to get on this. He's just a ball of energy. He got so much information about skateboarding from pre my time. And he's a beautiful person in that. And he's like, yeah, these are really good. Let's try and get Tony on. So they said, let's talk to his sister, who's agent at the time. And she ended up saying, yep, let's do a deal. So I needed a certain figure of money. So I flew out to the East Coast to see Reggie in Wilmington. And Reggie's like, what do you need? He goes, he said he wanted exclusive distribution to the brand. So on the East Coast, and he could go all the way to the West Coast as well if he wanted.
Yeah.
But we were going to do our own distribution company here in California. And he was fine with that.
You were going to do the distribution company.
So we were going to do it, which we ended up doing. It was called Antics.
Antics Distribution?
Yeah, Antics International Distribution. So we did that and we had a place in Vista and pretty much right where all Bareback and all those companies are, DC, were back in the day.
Yeah.
So I flew over and he's like, I want this distribution. I said, yeah, no worries. Let's do it. And then he said, what else do you need? And I said, well, I said, I got to pay Tony Hawk this much money. So he gave us a check and I went back. And
from Eastern Skateboard Supply.
Yeah.
So, but you also had the $4 million pending.
So basically we were able to pay, signed Tony, paid Tony, went back to Australia, had the biggest, and signed a distribution deal. And I went back. 2 weeks, I had $2 million in my bank account.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was
crazy.
It was crazy.
And that was, okay, so that was venture capitalists.
Venture capitalists.
You got $2 million and you owed them how much of a percentage?
35% of the company if we got the $4 million.
Okay, so $2 million for 35% of this company is a huge valuation.
It was a big value. So what happened was, the way it was sold was that these venture capitalists, they were into tech, right? To put in perspective, they gave a guy $10 million because he thought that there was tin in the hills of Indonesia, right? But they were in tech, and this was a tech product. It was the only one-piece titanium hanger product. And they thought eventually they could sell this into Walmart and make millions off it, which they were never going to. It was like, the guy I did it with was like, he sold them BS. Like, really, it was. But I was like, oh, I'm a dumb skater, you know, because I've been in skate companies and they make you kind of feel like you're just a skateboarder. You're not that smart.
Right.
But you come up with these ideas and you don't really back yourself because like, who's going to listen to a skateboarder anyway?
And your self-confidence and some of these things, it's similar to a skateboard trick.
Yeah.
You've never done it before.
Yeah. So
oh man, so much to learn.
I'm walking into a room with multimillionaires selling them this idea, billionaires as well in Australia selling them. And this was 2000. I got the money in 2009. So the global financial crisis had just really hit Australia. It obviously hit here in 2008. It didn't hit for another year in Australia.
The housing boom.
The housing thing.
Bust, I guess.
Yeah. So that happened and there was no money in the US, but then we got this money. And that's how I was able to sit down with DVS and have that conversation in the end. But we moved our office to the USA. I was the marketing hype guy, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
But I was back and forwards because I've got 3 children, but my ex-wife, she had another child and so she couldn't move to the USA. So I was always back and forth. So my kids were in Australia. So I was doing all these deals. I brought on obviously I brought Tony Hawk and we had Jake Duncombe, Johnny Layton. Who else did we have? Matt Mumford, Chad Barty. Obviously, we got all our Australians.
Yeah, the Australian contingent.
Darrell Stanton. There was some crazy, like we had Jordan Hoffa. Like we had all these people and it was a big team. And people were like, how are you going to pay these? And I'm like, I got a phone call from Bob DeKnight saying, oh, like you can't pay someone $1,500 a month for trucks. And I was like, well, why not?
Right.
And at the time there was we had a company and that was invested in, and I would have done things a lot differently, but it wasn't my call because I chose that I was going to do the marketing and business development. And this guy, Chris, he was going to do he was the CEO and all of that. And he was going to do all the financial side. So I trusted him because he was from like Price Waterhouse Cooper kind of guy, analyst. So, and he came from a rich family that were, his dad collects Porsches and has hundreds of them and shit like that. So I just trusted it. And I'm a pretty trustworthy person in that sense. Like, and when I was in Australia, like I ran the Australian business too. So I'd come over, do the deals with everyone. And then we wanted to get, so we had a truck company and we had this belt and wallet company called Armadillo, which we ended up getting into PacSun.
Okay.
So we got all these belts and wallets in there and we made a lot of money from that. And we're like, this is great. And then we were looking for board brands. And I used to live with Chris Pastras and Brian Howard, like Brian Howard and Chris Pastras. And then I lived there too. And Chris and I became friends in that time. And he's such a like gentle soul and all of that. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, so I hit up Chris. I go, hey, I need a board brand. Do you want a licensed stereo? And they were doing some stuff on the Barracks. They had like Josiah Gatlin and all of that. And I was like, let's do it. And we can, so we get Jason
to
Lee.
Sell through the distributor.
To sell, so that we license it off them. They make a bit, I think they make like 5 to 10%. And then we fund it all, right? So they don't have to do anything. And we pay them a wage.
Whoa, that's pretty good. Yeah, I have so many questions about how the distribution works, but keep going.
Yeah, so we did that. And then they, we call in Jason Lee and there's another hero of mine. And I'm like, wow. And not only that, my kids watched every Alvin and the Chipmunks movie at the time too. And but he was a hero of mine from skating. Yeah. So I bring these people into this mix with this guy and I'm like, all right, this is cool. And the business is going along nicely. And then the plastic boards hit, like penny boards. And they were a hit. Like they were making so much. That was a little Australian brand and it went massive, right?
Yeah. How did that happen? That is so interesting.
It was crazy. Like it was just a Queensland guy from Brisbane and he just saw the market and just hit it. And then it introduced, like it's another great thing. People hated on it, but it was such a great thing to introduce people into skateboarding, which it got a lot of people into it. So we thought, they hadn't made their mark in the USA yet. So we thought we'd make up the stereo vinyl cruiser, right? So we made up this thing, which is exact thing, but it looked like a record and all of that. And we marketed that. And like, obviously having Jason Lee, he went on the Ellen DeGeneres show and gave some away and things like that. So our business went like this and we got this But what happened was our core market, going back to core market, was trucks. You know what I mean? That's what our whole business got funded on.
So you were using the money from THEEVE to pay for other brands in this distribution
Which was all right
company.
because when you're
it's your investment.
When you're got sales guys calling, go, hey, do you want to buy some trucks? And they go, yeah, I do, but what else you got? Because you're going to pay for shipping and everything. You've got to have an offering. So I'm like, okay, we need boards. We had the belts and wallets, but we had to educate people how to sell that, and that's a huge market. Like the accessories market. If somebody got back into that and did that, I tell you this, that could be $1 billion, right? Just in our industry anyway. Like it's massive. So we had those companies. We had another company called Lurkville. Do you remember that one? It was like a Midwest company, and it was cool. And then
I think I do remember that one. Lurkville.
It was pretty cool. And then we were trying to do a deal with Birdhouse at the time too to bring that in.
To bring it into the distributor.
Yeah.
But Birdhouse already has a distributor.
Well, that was Tony Hawk being the distributor. Because what happened was they were with Blitz Distribution, which had Baker, Fury, Birdhouse, and that was under Blitz. And
so the distributor is basically selling to the skate shops.
Yeah. So
they have all the lines into the skate
They've got all the lines in this. They've got the sales. They can do customer service, the whole lot. So that's how it works.
Straight to skate shops. This isn't straight to the customer, direct to consumer.
Because really when we started, online wasn't massive. You know what I mean?
Right. Different era.
It was probably 5% of the market back then, if you're lucky. Maybe 3%. Like it was
depending on where you're talking about, it might not be too much different now. I mean, it might be like 10, 15%. But like, let's say, what's the biggest distributor now? Is it NHS?
Probably NHS. NHS and Deluxe would be the two biggest.
Wow.
Like in skate. But then Reggie Barnes trumps
Eastern
them all,
Skate Supply.
because he does
does.
Yeah, he does all of their companies. Like they all wish they were here. He dictates to everyone. Everyone has to have Reggie because you don't want to be shipping from this side of the country to the other side of the country to a shop because how much is the shipping going to be?
Because he has massive warehouses.
And he's got a huge operation over there. Like you go over there and see what he's got.
Yeah.
Well, you go to NHS or Deluxe and see what they've got. They're like a quarter of the size of what he is.
I got to do some tours.
Oh, you do. It's crazy because like even yourself, like you guys in the realm of skateboarding are massive. You know what I mean? And people don't realize it, especially the cool core skate world doesn't realize how massive you are. We see kids skating in Australia with Braille boards and it's no different than seeing Santa Cruz board or, something like that. They're there. But they have they've got international sales managers and things like that, whereas you're only online. So that's how they manage their sales funnels, right? So say you've got a downturn in the USA. It's just like, well, let's put pressure on our international sales manager and he's got to go to the UK and he needs to go and get another $100,000 out of them for the next quarter. So he has to upsell and that's how then they have to pay and get that straight away. So they've got to pay. Through shop. Well, no, they go to another distributor. So they go to the distributor in their country.
So Eastern Skate Supply in the US, and then they're going to go to...
They go to all the shops in the US, but at NHS, they go to all the distributors around the world.
So a new distributor in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, so they'd go to a distributor in the United Kingdom, and that distributor then sells on to all the shops in the United Kingdom. So that's what Reggie does on the East Coast. He's got the East Coast sewn up. You know what I mean? Because like I said, you might have a 20-pack of boards and shipping them from the West Coast to the East Coast. Like imagine from San Diego up to Boston.
Yeah.
Like that's massive.
Your profit margin is already zero as it is.
So that's right. But if you're getting from Wilmington, it's going to be there in a day and it's only going to cost you $25 or something like that. You know what I mean? So you make money. So that's what Reggie did. And he's been going for 30 odd years. You know what I mean? He's amazing at what he does.
What's up, everyone? Let me take a quick break here to tell you about Braille Army Plus, the membership platform designed by me to teach you how to ride a skateboard. Have you ever been wondering, man, if I just knew the correct technique to do this kickflip, I could get it? Or maybe you thought to yourself, If I just had Aaron Cairo to teach me how to ollie, I know I could land this. Well, I designed the Braille Army Plus membership for that thing specifically. You sign up on brailleskateboarding.com/army and you can get started messaging me on the members only Discord right away. You can send me a clip and ask me, hey Aaron, what am I doing wrong with this? And I will tell you the exact technique, the exact practice step. I'll even tell you exactly what you should be doing each and every day to improve in your skateboarding over a long period of time. If you're practicing the correct tricks in the correct way, I 100% guarantee that you will be progressing on your skateboard. So join the best group on the entire internet and join Braille Army Plus. brailleskateboarding.com/army. I'll see you in there shredding. Thanks for checking it out, and now back to the interview.
We did that. We had our distribution company, and then we started getting into these plastic boards. And like I thought, yeah, this is cool. It's a good way to make money, but we've got to do this. And the other things that works good for being an Australian company, if we sell overseas, into other countries, we get what's called a marketing, R&D and marketing grant every year if it's over a certain amount, which equates to about $150,000, right? From the government, right? So that comes into our account. So we knew we had that $150,000 every year. So I would spend months like with this guy, Russell, and he'd come in, an older guy, and he knew how it all worked because he used to work in there, and we'd pay him. He'd take a 10% cut of the $150,000, and he might have had 20 companies doing it. Like he knew his stuff. You were always guaranteed, and you have 7 years to make this money, right? The government gives you 7 years of having this R&D. Specifically to sell overseas. So that we can get our export happening, right? So that we can export. Yeah. So I was doing this every year, which was $150,000. And what we did was all our marketing, so team riders and all that money would be put into was meant to be put into another account. I didn't handle the money, it was put into another account, and that was meant to pay all the riders. Right. But that wasn't happening. That's where THEEVE and Antics went down. Well, that money went to the guy I worked with, the ex-partner, and he ended up having a nice cars. And, I'm in Australia driving around in a $2,000 Subaru. The money disappeared. And he had a nice car and a nice house and all of this. So I was the face. I knew all the riders. Yeah. I brought Jason and Chris in. I brought these brands in. And I put everything, because I believed in everything that we were doing. Like I love THEEVE, you know what I mean? Even when I separated with my wife, I cried more when I lost THEEVE.
Yeah, I was going to say, that is so heartbreaking.
It's your heart and soul.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, the time and hours you put into it and the relationships, because you've got 20 years of relationships there. And they get broken like that. Right. And, I lost my best friend, Brian Howard, in it, you know what I mean? And that breaks my heart. And that's just from people telling lies about what happened. And the reality is that the company, he was using up so much money in these plastic boards. Like we got a PO from, purchase order from Amazon for $1 million for these plastic boards. And Reggie said to me, don't take it, Reggie Barnes. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but it'd be good. And he goes, no, because they'll cancel, guarantee you they'll cancel it, because they're just notorious for doing that. And I was
Amazon. Online retailer.
Yeah.
Wanting to purchase 1 million boards.
$1 million worth of boards.
And then they would cancel it?
And then they cancel, or they might cancel 50% or 3/4.
How can they do that? I guess they just can.
Well, are you going to sue Amazon?
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there.
So,
it's brutal.
It's brutal. So Chris is like, we're putting all our money in this. And I'm like, don't do it, right? And he did it. And then we had, I think it was 10 shipping containers of plastic boards. And overnight in Australia, the tap turned off on plastic boards. Penny couldn't sell them. And he's saying to me, you need to take 2 shipping containers and sell them. I say, I can't. And he's like, you have to. And I go, okay, I'll sell them for $10 a board online. Okay, because that's the only way we're going to. He goes, that's not good enough. I go, well, at least we'll get our money back. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
that's all we need is our money back. No, he's like, you're devaluing the brand and all of that. And I'm like, look, I go, I'm not taking them. I'm not accepting them. They'll just sit at the docks. And at that time this is like 2012, I was meant to move to the US. Like, I'd done a deal with my ex-wife's ex-husband. So I had a lot of exes in there. So I'd done that, and we were going to move to California, which was great. You know, we'd looked at schools, we were about to purchase a house. It was all coming together, and then he did what I'd seen him do to other people, and he just did everything to badmouth me to all the people in the office in the US. And next thing you know, I was on the outer. And I was just like, how is this? He sent me this big email, which I've still got, which basically said, like, you're a subordinate. I run the company. I don't care who you are or what you've done. You're out. You do what I say. Do not go to the investors. Do not tell them what I'm doing. Because basically he was using all the money. And what I found out later was he was our accountant and Brian. He borrowed money off them to pay wages. Which is totally illegal to do. Yeah. Right. And I was just like, what the heck? And like, those guys, I don't think got paid back. So he ended up fleeing the country.
But you owned what percentage of this company?
30 odd percent.
30 odd percent.
Yeah.
So when you got the 4 million, you gave 35%.
35, but then there was a bunch of us in that as well.
Yes,
so,
of course.
So I'm in there trying to make things, but Chris was, because he was we'd put him in charge of everything.
Yes.
You kind of just sit there like this. Wow, like, this is dumb. Like, this is dumb. And like, I was pretty aggressive when I was younger. So I'd be like arguing, like, no, this is stupid. Like, what are you doing? And I guess I put people offside as well, but then we had 3 different groups of investors, like big investors. We had the venture cap, because he'd gone and got more investors to come into the company groups. There was 2 other groups he brought in because we'd spent the 4 million. He'd just spent it. And that 150,000 that I'd get, he was meant to be paying Tony and all of this. And so I didn't know that people weren't getting paid, right?
Yeah.
I'd get a mention now and then I'd call him and go, hey, you need to pay this. Why isn't? And we had a guy in Australia, so I just paid direct to him from Australia and keep everyone happy. Yeah. But apparently that's stealing from the company if you do that, which is crazy when you're paying people's bills. Right. Anyway, so I didn't really know anything that was going on and how bad things were until I was on a tour in Australia. We got a big day out tour, which is where all the best bands come and tour, and we got a vert ramp there and we're doing that. And Tony Hawk was on it. And he had his team, and I'd got invited to go on it. I was like, oh, this is sick. And anyway, we go to New Zealand, then we go tour around Australia, and we end in Perth. And the whole time, like, and even I think to this day, Tony's a little off with me. And he was a little off. And I was like, oh, all right, this is weird. And anyway, we get to Perth, and my parents lived there at the time, and my dad's like, I really want to meet Tony. And I said, he's kind of been weird to me. And he goes, well, it's not like you not to go and say something. I go, yeah, but it's Tony Hawk. It's not like...
Yeah, legendary Tony Hawk. You don't just say something.
I can't, and like, even, you know, you'd go on tour with him. You're always like, I'm still in awe, like, to this very day. You know, we saw him just on the weekend, and it's like, Tony, can you sign this board for our school? You know, like, and things like that, because he's there. You know what I mean? There's no one else that's there. Like, right. I'm sorry. Like,
100%.
And then, anyway... My dad's like, just go and say. So I introduced him to my parents. Then my parents leave, and I go, okay. So I said, Tony, have I done something wrong? And he's like, look. He goes, I signed up to your company, like, because it was pretty amazing to get Tony Hawk to come onto our company and all of that. And you know, I always wanted to put out a video part with Tony because, like, at the time, Tony wasn't kind of cool, but it was still Tony Hawk. And I was like, let's do a video part. And then when we kicked him off, he went and did one with Indy, and it's like. That's another time I cried that day. It was like insane. But so what happened was Tony said, oh, look, yeah, it's not about the money. It's just the fact you haven't paid me. You owe me this amount of money, which isn't a lot of money, but it's still, man, if I was owed it, I'd be tripping. You know what I mean? Yeah. But, you know, in the scheme of Tony, it's not. It's more the principle. And, like, I totally understand it. So I said, look, I'll sort it out. Don't worry. Like, I still want you on the team, like, you know, all of that, because we got our investment because of him, not because of some guy that thought he was an amazing businessman, which proves that he wasn't.
Right.
It was because of Tony Hawk and Reggie Barnes. Like, if we didn't have distributorship and if we didn't have a name like that, we wouldn't have got 1 cent. If we didn't have Tony Hawk, we wouldn't have got any investment, because
he made you $4 million.
Tony Hawk is the reason, because people wanted to be associated. Rich people, like, they want to be associated to people. So that was the easiest way to sell it. And it worked. But in the meantime, I lost respect of an idol, like somebody that probably thought I was cool. And then now it's like, this guy's an arsehole and still looks at me tainted, you know?
Yeah.
And I totally see it. And I have to wear that for the rest of my life, which is fine. But they've got to understand what my position was in it. And I didn't have any position, because I was sending 150,000 back to the USA every year, which was this reasoning and data and marketing grant that we'd get. And this guy, Chris, was just using it for whatever he wanted, which realistically was to prop up the company, because he was just doing so much shoddy stuff.
Yeah. Chris, random business guy, not Chris Pastras.
Not Chris Pastras. No way. No. Chris Pastras got the raw end of the deal too. You know what I mean? And Chris is another great person. You know what I mean? And he's always great when I see him as well. But like, a lot of people got burnt and hurt in this exercise, and my dreams of grandeur and taking on the skate world. But so anyway, I was like, all right, cool. So I called up Pat Hawke, which was Tony's manager, which is his sister, and I said, hey, she says, yeah, look, you guys haven't paid us for this many months, like, what's going on? And I go, look, I'll come over. I think this was like a Sunday or a Monday. I said, look, I'm going to be over there on Wednesday. Let's have a meeting on Friday. So I end up call up Chris and I said, and Brian, I said, hey, like, this is what's going on. We need to pay him this money.
Yeah.
Chris is like, we don't have the money. And I go, well, I just sent you a reasoning data thing, like, Grant, you've got to pay this. And he goes, look, we'll work it out. I said, well, I'm coming. Let's sort it when I get there. Well, he went the next day and kicked Tony off. And so I got there. I didn't even have, like, I remember going in there and Galena at the front. And I'm like, hey, I want to see someone. And she goes, no, we don't want a thief in here. And I'm like, it broke my heart. Like that.
This is at the distributor.
Well, no, this is at Tony Hawk Industries.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So like, I was shunned, like, and it wasn't anything I did. Like, the one thing I would never have done, I would have taken money from everyone else and even from myself to make it happen. So right then I was really aware of how much trouble we were in. And so we had like 3 investment groups. We had MAP Capital. We had this other one called Rose Maverick, and this guy, Chris's family. And anyway, basically Chris's family was trying to take over the whole business, but I didn't want to have anything to do with them. But they're calling me, asking me for all this information. Because I worked in the company, I had to give them the information. So I'm giving them the information. Then they're asking me, what would you do if you ran the company? And I said, well, we had Chris as the managing director, and then we had Brian as the general manager. And then we had, you know, all these other people. And I said, well, what I do is we don't need a general manager. So let's move Brian back to international sales. And that gets rid of one wage and get rid of our international sales guy. But Chris and his family went back to Brian and said, Trevor wants to fire you.
Oh, wow.
I've been around him and his wife forever and the kids, as if I'd want to fire that and fire him. And it's like, no, like but you know, it's just the way it got delivered and where he was sitting. Like, obviously he's going to go with them because he'd loaned him $50,000 and he was waiting for that money to come back. And all he could see as me was this disruptor. Because all I said was, I just want to take THEEVE back. You have the rest of the business and let's go our separate ways. So I had these other 2 investors, MAP and Maverick Rose, coming to me, these groups saying, hey, we want it. And so
THEEVE.
we want
And you
THEEVE.
have 30 some odd percent at this point.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I'm working with both of them, trying to figure out which one's the best to go with. In the end, I went with MAP. And MAP are the major shareholder in the company, and then I'm the minority. So to this day. So they took it on, and I I signed with them because they said, we're going to do everything that I said we need to do. They said, we're going to do it. We need to buy more brands, which we ended up going and buying Mystery. And we need to do all these things. So they agreed to it, but they never funded it. So then I was constantly selling things I had to fund the company and not getting any more equity.
Right.
Just to save my name. So the way I got the company was I had to go around and see people like Benny Fairfax and Jordan Hoffert and Chad Barty and Matt Mumford and offer to buy their debt in the company, which I could only offer them, say if they owed $5,000, I could only give them $2,000 or $1,000 or something like that. I'd say either take this or get nothing. So they did that. And
it was their debt, meaning their team rider payments that were not paid.
Correct.
And they had equity in the company?
No, they didn't have any equity. But what happens is because their debt is of value, once you buy up all that debt, then you own the debt. So the company's indebted to you. So I went around and bought all this debt. And
that's a wild move.
Well, that's
interesting play.
Well, so I called up a administrator, which is, I'm not sure what you call it in Australia, but that's somebody who winds companies up. And because Chris had thrown
winds companies up to take them to
get rid of them, like they're bankrupt.
Right.
So Chris had thrown what they call all these companies into administration, thinking that no one could afford to buy them out, and him and his family could buy them out. And so I went around and bought up all the little bits of debt that he was just like, oh, fuck it, don't worry. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So I went and bought all these things up because I talked to my uncle had a friend who's a high up lawyer like that. And he said, if you do this, you'll get control. So I went and did that, and I'd have the most votes. So it's like 31st of December, 2012. I'm sitting like no place a skater should be. Like it's like the 30th floor in this business district in Melbourne, Collins Street. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like everyone's in suits. I got this guy at the end of the table being a complete asshole to me, just blaming the whole collapse of the business on me. Like this guy, Chris, wasn't there. His dad was there. And this guy was a piece of work too. Like he threatened my family, everything, if I didn't go with them. And I ended up pulling him down the stairs and throwing him out of the business. And he was like a 75-year-old man. I felt bad, but he said some pretty bad things to me. And
investors that had lost money.
Well, this is my old business partner's dad. Right. So he was like, you need to come with us, our family. Like you can't turn on our family or else we're going to mess up you and your family. You know what I mean? And I'm like, hey, this is because they're millionaires, man. They work in a different space.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm just a skateboarder. Like what? So I'm sitting in this room.
How did I get into this place?
I know. And I've got this folder, like this manila folder.
I just want to do some kick flips.
Exactly right. And I'm sitting there with this thing, like folder full of everyone's debt. And this guy who was a total prick, just so condescending to me the whole time, big time lawyer. He's just basically like laying into me and telling me like, you did this, you did that. And I go, really? I did this? And I turned to Chris's dad and I said, hey man, you need to get your kid under control. Like this is BS. Like he's got no accountability. He's not even here right now and he should be here. And he's the one that made all the financial decisions. Like we're on a mahogany table, like in a meeting table, you can see over the whole of Melbourne and it's like no place where I should have been. I should never have been there. And I've got this thing and this guy's just been so condescending to me and I'm like,
but what's the purpose of this meeting?
Well, it's to see who ends up with the companies.
Right.
So we've got the company that holds all the patents, you know what I mean, for the titanium truck company. We've got everything that runs each business, the Australian business. We've got the belt company. We've got a thing that holds all the licenses. So there's a lot of value in there. I think there was like $18 million worth of value.
Whoa.
Like we grew really fast. Like it was crazy. And
all under this distributor.
Yeah, Antiques International Distribution. So we grew really fast and we had like a lot of employees and obviously too many. And the money wasn't handled right at all. Like
it's tough.
Yeah, but you know what? Like this guy's, I guess you got to kind of look at it from their perspective. Even though I've lost friends out of it, I'm not bummed about it because I learned a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and you got to think like at one stage, like I was hitting the truck market, which is pretty full on. And we got to about 15% market share. And I had like Bob DeNike from NHS, who's the CEO, giving me a hard time. And Jim THEEVE, even though he's the nicest guy, like, you know, I did things to him, which he got pissed off with, and he went back at me. I stole some riders. But, you know, we're older men now, and he's cool as hell with me. You know what I mean? He's cool as anything. He's the nicest guy, and he's given me so much advice over the years.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in this room, and we're working out where all it goes. And, you know, obviously I've got these millionaires, like this guy, Chris's family, like they're so certain they're going to get all the brands.
Right.
And so they're about to wind it up. And I go, he's like, well, what do you have? And I pushed it over there to him, and he starts looking through everything. And he's just about to read out the findings. And he goes, puts it down, and he's got this stack here, puts all my stuff on top of it, pushes it across to me, and he goes, you're now the new owner of all the businesses.
No way.
So we got it by default. And
Because you bought up all the debt.
I bought up all the debt for nothing.
So
I think it cost me, like I sold a house, and it cost me probably about 250,000.
And then you bought with 250,000, you basically bought $18 million worth of business.
Yeah, there was a lot of debt in that.
Yeah, that's it. That's the thing that people need to understand.
People don't understand it, right? So I did that. And then
business debt, cards, money owed to banks, money owed to.
It was crazy, right?
Yeah.
But he got to go off and do his own thing, and I got to do my own thing. But we ended up with an agreement where he could he had to make a new distribution company, and he could distribute my brands for it. So, which it didn't last long because he just tried to do everything bad. And then he had his own falling out with his staff because they finally worked out that he was a fraud. And some of them don't. Some of them think he's the greatest guy and I'm the worst guy in the world and I ripped him off. But if they ever listen to this, they might get an understanding and I can always send them the emails, because that's one thing I always do is always keep a paper trail. And I learned that a long time ago. When I email with people always say, oh, let's just have a meeting. I go, no, put it down in email first. Right? And because if you've got it there, and I've got it with a lot of people who go, oh, that guy ripped me off. And I say, no, let's have a look and see what it is. You know what I mean? Because if you don't have it, it's just your word against theirs.
Right.
You know?
Which is like.
And no one wants to ever see the truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, I've had times where I've said, hey, we can sit down and talk. I've got it all here. And they're like, oh, no, it's cool. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But meanwhile, they're in the back doing this all the time, chatting.
Yeah.
So, and, I've had to get a thick skin from it as well. But, so we got it. And then I got these investors back involved and they said they were going to fund it. And in the end, I was trying to fund it. And we got into Zoomies. And Zoomies, we did a test with them in 50 stores and we were the number one selling truck.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy. So I said, all right, let's go and get more stock. So I funded part and they funded part. And we got a heap of stock. But what happened was ended up being some wharf crisis. They ended up, all the guys on the wharfs ended up boycotting or were on strike.
Yeah.
So our trucks sat out in the ocean for 3 months, just sitting out there. Meanwhile, Thunder and Indy filled the POs that we couldn't, and didn't end up getting to fill our POs. And consequently, our business didn't go like this. It just went like that. Then this was the same issue. They wouldn't pay anyone because I didn't have I didn't do that. That wasn't my thing. I
never had control of the finances.
No, all I had was a credit card, and then what I'd do is I'd go to these guys, make an invoice, and set up Xero software. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, it's an accounting software.
Yeah, so you can actually link it to Stripe, and I can pay bills with my credit card. So I'd send them to me, and I'd pay them that way.
Right.
But apparently that's stealing from the business. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I'm not.
Financial lines have to be airtight. It's incredibly.
So I get accused of that.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to pay people that are owed. They're like, dude, I can't feed myself. And I'm not talking about sending 15, 20,000. I'm talking $700, $300. Or Thrasher, I owe money. They're like, well, we need to advertise. Okay, I owe you 500, man. I'll send it to you. Those kinds of things. And I'm like, I might have been over here on a sales trip, so I'd run into high speed and just swipe my card. You know what I mean? That's what I had to do.
Right.
So it just got to this point where that they're like, oh, you're doing this and you're doing that. And I go, no, I'm just trying to keep the business alive and working, and you guys aren't doing, you're working against me. And
financial and venture capital, it's a different world.
And you know what? They thought they were going to make, they're still to this day, I've offered to buy it off them.
Yeah.
100%. They're still in that deep with that. And you know what? They ended up going public as a public company, and they're a $1 billion company now. Yeah. So nothing I can do, they could sue the crap out of me for even talking right now. You know what I mean? Like but like that was an experience, and like I've had people with my company now come to me and say, hey, you need investors, like you could be huge. And it's like, I'm so weary about that because I'd rather nickel and dime.
Yeah, I'm so scared. I've gotten offers. I'm never taken an investment, not once ever.
No, that's the same. Like if people always say to me, oh, like your business looks so big. Like how many investors you have? And I go, I don't, because I've been so scared off by it, and
the horror stories are numerous.
It's huge, and you're so accountable, and like not that I did anything wrong, but it's just like all I wanted was these people that I had relationships not to hate me. Yeah. Because money got involved, and that's when you run a business, money's involved, and you've got staff and all of that. And all they want to do is feel like they're valued. And when you're not paying someone, you don't feel valued. And I used to be in that position with companies I was sponsored by, like they didn't pay me, and I'd get so irate. I'm like, dude, how am I going to feed my kids, Right. I didn't come here not to get paid, and it's months and months. But it's just the communication, and people are always scared to say they've got no money. You know what I mean? Like, like I know it. Like I'm sitting there, I'm like, shit, I got no money. But I'll sit there. Like we had one, we have school terms where it's 10 weeks, 10 weeks, 10 weeks. That's how school operates. 10 weeks, then 2 weeks school holidays, then 10 weeks and one school term, I said to the teachers, I go, you guys have to take a 20% pay cut, or else we're not going to make it through this. Right. And they're like, oh, well, we can't do that. And I said, okay, cool. Well, if you don't do that, like, because I don't take any money, like people always think, oh, you're making heaps. Like I don't take any money because we're still growing our business. Yeah. I go, we can do that, or we can just shut tomorrow and you don't have a job. And I go, but if you do this, we can always make more money in time to come. Like I've got no problem doing that when there's money's good. And this was like last year. And anyway, they did it, and they're still there now, and they're happy. And I was honest about it, but it takes a long time to get to that point, Yes. But like with THEEVE, I had nothing to do with that. And I'd always be like, oh yeah, cool. Like money's coming. Like I'd call up and go, hey, oh yeah, we'll pay it. Don't worry. So I'm just relaying, but I was the messenger, and I was the one that got killed, Well,
of course. Especially since you're the face and you are an owner and you are accountable, and then you really have to have control of every piece of that energy.
You have to. You know what it's like here.
I know what it's like. Yeah.
And that's how it is with our other business. Like I try to step away, but it's so hard to do it, I try to switch off when I'm here, 3 weeks, but 3 weeks without me in the business. Oh, it's getting better. Like, and my partner, she's so good with me because like I am crazy as hell. Yeah. Like I'm nuts. And then, she sees me over here, and she now sees it. She's like, oh my gosh, Arissa comes first. Like, that's great. That's great for our business, And so she accepts it more, but she knows how hard I work and what I'm trying to do for us and for skateboarding. Like she doesn't love skateboarding at all. And like, she's into fashion, she's into wine, she's into architecture. All she wants to do is go to Palm Springs and do tours there, things like that. Yeah, yeah. And here I am with 11 ratty kids on the other side of the world running around trying to be cool.
Doing 540s on the vert ramp.
Yeah, that's it.
It's interesting. I have a similar person in my business too. I love her. She's amazing and incredible. And I feel like there's so many things that's like, oh, you need that grounding. Oh, my head's in the clouds all the time. Oh, or this or that. And I think that she needs me too. She needs the clouds.
Yeah, that's the same with like there's times like I remember when we had our first skate park and in COVID we had to close down, and basically we just overextended on the building. The building was like I think it was like $30,000 a month. It was massive, right?
Insane.
Yeah, I just didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, we need to be the biggest and the best, so everyone comes here.
But tell me how it ended up with THEEVE.
Okay, so what happened was THEEVE, we were doing really well, and we cut it right back. I ended up buying Mystery of Jamie, which was an interesting deal. Like basically we went in, he was going bad with everything. He needed to get rid of Mystery, and he offered it for some ridiculous price to us. And I said, no, it's not worth that. Like, you're getting rid of it anyway. And he ended up, I said, I want the team. And he wanted it this crazy price. And I said, no, it's not worth that. And he goes, okay, we're going to give you the team. And I said, yeah, and I'll buy the stock, and this is the price. And I really lowballed him, you know what I mean? And there had been already some history between us with when we gave him trucks for THEEVE, and he ended up giving those trucks away to another truck company who went and copied it, and he had a non-disclosure, which kind of, I was such a fan of Jamie until that happened. I was hurt again, because it's like, it's all your effort and passion put into something, and then someone just goes and rips it off. You're like, oh my goodness. But anyway, I really lowballed him, and he came to the party, and I said, don't kick the team off, don't tell the team, because like Tom Astor and all that were on there. But I guess he went and told them, and they all quit.
Oh no. And Jamie Thomas told the team.
Yeah. And so then there was no value in it. And I tried to bring back
wait, after you bought it or before you bought it? So you were like, I'm buying this company. I want the team. You paid the money, and now the team is gone.
Gone.
Isn't that illegal? You can't do that.
Well, everyone can do whatever they want.
That's true.
And they've got an alliance to Jamie, and Jamie's Jamie. Like, he's
of course
amazing. He's done amazing for skating. I can't.
Legendary, legend.
Amazing, right?
Yes.
So that part just, like, it might get told as a story a different way, but that's the way that I read it,
Sure.
And maybe I read it wrong, but we couldn't really do much with the brand after that. And we tried to bring a few people back, like Adrian Lopez and all of that, and Windsor James. And it was just really difficult to deal with it. I think it was like, well, these guys had lots of money and all of that, but I didn't have money.
Oh, it was put forward sort of like these venture capitalists came in, these rich venture capitalists came in and bought the brand.
Yeah, but at the time, the venture capitalists weren't putting any money in. Like, it was my money, you know what I mean? Even though they said they were going to. It was really running on an oily rag. Like, it was like month to month. Like, it wasn't how it was in the first time. It was like month to month.
Right.
But I still had that business dealing. Like, I was kind of like an asshole, you know what I mean? Like, I was that business guy that just wanted to be successful and accepted into skateboarding.
Yeah.
And in the end, I shot myself in the foot.
Right.
Which is fine. Like, I got plenty of friends in skateboarding. Which is great, and I'm still a part of it, and I'll always be a part of it. That's the problem for everyone. If you think I'm going anywhere, I'm not. I'm here for good. And I've been here for 30 years. I'll probably be here for another 30 more, fingers crossed. Not for you guys, for me. But that was what it was. And so we started doing that, and then I just couldn't get along with, we'd have board meetings, and I write the board notes and all of that, and I just couldn't get along with them anymore. They just weren't making smart decisions.
Venture capitalists.
Venture capitalists, yeah. They just couldn't get along with them anymore. And
see, it's so wild for me to think about all these different brands, a board meeting that's making decisions across these different brands and this distribution, and a new brand that you just bought that lost the team. Like, man, that's crazy. Lot.
And I sold it to the board on the fact that we had Tom Astor, because the idea was, okay, we have Tom Astor, and then we can put him on THEEVE and revamp THEEVE through that, because Tom at that stage had a lot of currency. And I was like, and then that could have brought some more riders in and all of that. And then all of a sudden Tom was gone, and next thing you know, he turns up at Santa Cruz. And that's funny because Andrew Cannon, he's a good friend of mine. He was on THEEVE. I actually told the guy who ran RP Best, who ran World, to turn him pro back in the day. And we're really good friends, Andrew and I. And Andrew calls me up and he goes, which company should I work for? And I'm like, because I'm going to work for someone. And he goes, should I work for Black Box because I was a zero kid, or should I go and work for NHS? And I was like, F Jamie, like, don't go there. That place is a sinking ship. And then I said, take NHS. I go, even though I hate the idea that you're going to go there and you can't ever ride my trucks again, just go there. And so he went there, you know, and the rest history. He loves it there, and he's done great for himself.
Brand manager, Santa Cruz, NHS.
Yeah.
Shout out Andrew Cannon.
Yeah, Andrew's the best. I love that guy. So we had when he used to drink, or the same as me when we were younger, we did a lot of karaoke nights together, which was fun. He was a great singer, that guy. So, and he was a lot of fun. Oh my gosh. And now he's got skinny and fit and all of that, which is great.
Yeah.
You know? He's a great person.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what happened. And then one day, I guess, you know, from me trying to pay people and do things that way, and then I was constantly saying, how do I buy it out? And then I had dealings with other companies. I started doing some consultancy to other companies.
Yeah.
And companies that wanted to get into the USA market. And then footwear, I had a lot of companies hitting me up and asking me how to do some things, because I did a footwear company in Australia as well, which did really well until the global financial crisis hit as well.
Yeah.
Basically, I left Nike and did this other company. So I had a lot of knowledge in that sense. And then so I was doing all this side stuff, and my passion wasn't there, and I guess they could see it as well. So they agreed to fire me as a CEO at the board meeting. So I was...
Oh, right, because you didn't hold a majority of the shares, so they could fire you if they wanted to.
Yeah, so I got fired. It was March 2015, I remember.
But they have to buy out your shares, no?
No.
What do you mean? So you still own shares?
Yeah, I still own shares.
So you get paid?
I get nothing. The company makes nothing. It's dead. It's dead in the water. Like, it's insane. I tried to buy it back a few times, and the guy that worked, so this skater, Steve McInnes, he owns, have you heard of FSC Skateboards and Happy Wheels?
No.
It's around. Anyway, he was a skater. He was a good skater, ledge skater and all of that. And then I said, hey, you should try and do some sales. Like, he was a skater that come into this thing, and I gave him some trucks.
Yeah.
And I said, you should do some sales for us. And he just had the gift of the gab, and I saw a lot of myself in him, and he outsold our sales manager in his first day.
Whoa.
Like, what the sales manager was doing for a week, he did in the first day. And then he ended up taking over as a sales manager. Then he became the international sales manager, and then he replaced me as the CEO. And that was like to come from a skater. And like I said to him, do you see yourself being a pro? And he goes, I want to be a pro. And he ended up making his own board company, FSC, and he became a pro on that and whatnot. And he's got a good team of people on it and whatnot. My daughter's actually rides for it at the moment.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's where I've seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So, but you know, they got international, Jesus Munoz, I think his name is, or something like that. He's on the team. They got some really good riders, but it's only small. So he did his brands through it. And then in the end, they ended up doing the same thing to him as what they did to me.
Fired him.
But like the same way. You know, all he was trying to do was tread water, and they couldn't do it. So they got rid of him.
Well, finance person is just looking at black and white, a sheet, that is it. And it's not looking at the human, it's not looking at the person. It's just literally, here's a number and we expect this number, and it's not there, you're gone.
Yeah, that's it. But you know what I've learned in business and reading, like going back to Phil Knight's book, is if you want this, it doesn't always come here. It's like coaching kids, right? So I've got my coaching company, like Level Up Skate Park.
Yeah.
You got parents that want 9-year-olds to be pro, like to be this good at 9. Why can't you get him better and better? And it's like, hang on. When he's 35 and he's had a career in skateboarding, then we'll have the conversation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to happen now. Don't break this kid now.
Yeah. Everybody wants something instantly, overnight. I don't know how it got indoctrinated into this idea. It takes years and years and years.
Instagram. Snapchat.
Facebook and Twitter too.
It got it. It got us. And that's the thing. Like, it's a long time. Like I always say, when they're 18, then we'll see whether or not they're going here or they've got to go get a job. You know what I mean? 'Cause that's when they've got to make that decision, you know.
Right.
They don't have to get a job, but it's like you either have to put in 10 times more work now to try and make it as a pro, or you've got to just go, okay, I've done as good as I can possibly do, or this mentally isn't for me. And that's the whole thing. So,
And it's a tough world.
oh, you've had it tough and you're still going. And there's plenty of people that wish they were in your shoes. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the same. Like, people look at us and go, how the hell have they got anything to do with skateboarding, these guys? But it's like, they don't understand that we're in a totally different place. We're not trying to sell, like, get hooked up boards from our bros so that we can go for a skate. Like, we're actually creating jobs for people in the industry, and we're introducing people to skateboarding every day. So, like, I started my skate park, and like I said before, we pretty much went broke with our skate park with COVID, and we got out of that. And then we found another warehouse, and we just were in the wrong area.
Yeah.
And now we're in this amazing catchment where we live on the Gold Coast, which is like surface paradise south of Brisbane.
Okay.
Beautiful beaches. It's like where Mick Fanning, the surfer, comes from. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's surf culture, but there's a lot of skate as well. And now the surf skate culture crosses over because, like, the surfer Gabriel Medina, he won the world title year before. And one of my good friends is his coach.
Yeah.
And he always comes to me for ideas on what he needs to do for Gabe, like, because skating and surfing cross over so much now.
Yeah.
It's so funny. They were like this parallel and then went so far apart, and now they're coming back together in the way of vert and aerial tricks and all of that. So with surfing. So we did work with Gabe Medina to get that. So he'd get the double-handed backflip in his finals and win the world title. So that was pretty cool to be able to be part of those things. But yeah, so we've got the skate park, and that's just going crazy. We do 450 kids do lessons. Now that's not
450.
I've got to say that differently. We have 450 lessons a week.
Okay, that's a lot of lessons.
Well, so there's 450 spaces for lessons a week.
Okay.
They're full. We've got a waiting list, and that's for skateboarding, BMX, and what we call surf skate.
How did you fill that up?
So, like, I coached. Like, I tried to be a pro skateboarder. It didn't really work out. I tried to come back into skateboarding about 2015, right?
Yeah.
The pro skating worked out. I always say, I won the skate lottery.
Yes.
Right? I made a lot of money out of skateboarding in that time.
Right. Hit it at the right time in the right place.
Right. Oh, man. Like, there's no way I would have got there now. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I started going back into competitions, and I was against a little 13-year-old freckly-faced kid called Kieran Woolley.
Yeah.
And Kieran I could see he had just something about him. And there was a few others. There's Ethan Copeland and another kid, Marley Ray, and this other kid, Bryce McKean. And Bryce's dad had seen the connection between vert skating and park skating, because park skating wasn't
a thing.
Right. And the industry decided to make it a thing so it could go into the Olympics, because girls were so weren't good enough on vert. You had Lindsay Adams Hawkins, a Pastrana, who could do a 540 and a kickflip Indy. And not on lock, but she could do it, and she could skate a lot better than the other girls. And there was Karen Jones, who was from Brazil, and then there wasn't really anyone else. And so I remember going to one of these IASK meetings, right? You know what they are, the industry
International Association of Skateboard.
Whatever. So I went to those, and I remember talking to people, and I'm like, like, why aren't you doing vert? Why are you doing park? And it's like, oh, well, girls aren't, vert skating's too elitist. And I'm like, yeah, but the Olympics, this is like 2009, 2010. The Olympics are 10 years away. Like, they will get better if we train them now and do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we're going to make it easier. So it's there's skate parks everywhere. And I go, yeah, but you can put a vert ramp anywhere anyway. Like, so I argued that, and they said, look, vert's dead. We're killing it. And I'm like, dude, like, that's so lame. But they did it to freestyle. Freestyle, it just evolved into street skating, which
yeah.
But then, they're saying the vert's so elitist. Imagine trying to go to the Olympics now for street skating. Like, you see what those guys doing? Like, it's like a video game. And, then you've got little Chloe the Flow. She could go in a comp back 10 years ago and probably win it right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how good they've got. And it's only just going to get to a point where they may never catch the men at doing it so long, but they would technically get there.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing for park and vert is girls should be just as good as guys.
Yeah.
Under the guise of that, you look at women's gymnastics, it's not much different to guys' gymnastics in that sense. So girls should be able to be that as well. And we just need to build their bodies to be like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got into, like, I argued with them about that. And then I argued with them about women's skating in general. And I'm like, why aren't these companies supporting women? Because you had Meow and all these women's Hoopla or something like that, brands coming through.
Yeah. I'm
like, you're missing this whole market. It's coming through. And I had 3 daughters and 1 son at that stage. And I'm like, we need to be that. They, oh, yeah. Now they're starting to do it, which is great. You know, you got Nicole House on Reel, and, you know, the girls are coming through, and then the brand that, what is it? Monarch, but I think that's gone now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was short-lived. It may not be. I may be wrong, but so yeah, I was back in Australia, and I thought, and the THEEVE thing around 2015 wound up for me. So I'm like, what am I going to do? And anyway, so I was skating, and I thought I'll go on a few competitions. All of a sudden, I found myself in like the top 3, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is all right. Like,
yeah.
But I was a 40-year-old man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Skating against 13-year-olds and 15 and 16, and maybe a couple of 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And then I'd heard a story how Kieran Woolley had broken his leg in Bondi Bowl doing a kickflip indie. And I was like, oh, and he was like 13 at that stage. And I said to him, then I went there for another comp, and I said, oh, you should do kickflip indies. And he goes, no, I broke my leg in this. And I said, and do you think it's going to happen again? He goes, it could. And I go, well, how long ago was that? And he's like, a year. I said, a lot happens. I go, you're pretty skillful. Anyway, I convinced him, and in 3 or 4 goes, I worked with him, and he got the kickflip Indian. He was super happy. And then this kid, Bryce, his dad obviously saw that vert was something that needs to happen, and his dad called me and said, oh, can we come up and stay with you? And can you teach my kid how to 540 and all that? So I did. And so I taught him a 540, and then somebody else calls. And then now I'm known as the guy who teaches everyone 540 and flip tricks, because there was no one was doing it. I'm in these competitions as a 40-year-old man doing kick flips and 540s and switch tricks and things like that. And they're bowl skaters. They all go forwards. You know what I mean? Like that's park skaters just go forwards. They hardly ever go switch.
Right.
So how do you beat someone? You just do a switch trick, and you're like, oh yeah, I've got that easy. And then people think switch is so hard, but it's not. It's like, there's so many regular tricks that are switch tricks that people just don't realize. They run into one another. So once you understand that, it's easy. And I wasn't thinking about being a coach, but my ex-wife made me move up to the Gold Coast. We lived down in Torquay. I ended up moving back down there because I did a lot of work with Rip Curl. They wanted to get into the skate market. And anyway, it never worked. So we ended up moving up to the Gold Coast, and I was there, and I was skating the local park, and it was so crappy, but I did this big heel flip frontside air, and I was just hanging out with the kids, having fun, as you do, like, because you don't actually think that you're a 40-year-old man. You still think you're a kid. And when you're at the skate park, as soon as you get on there, you
are
like,
a kid.
You're a kid. You think that you look like you're 14. So anyway, I'm hanging out, I'm helping some kids, and I just started hanging out with the kids, and this guy was standing off to the side with his kid, and he said to me, oh, will you do some work with my kid? And I said, no, I don't do that. Because, like, as a pro, the last thing you want to do is coach people. Like, and especially from my era, you don't coach that. We don't do that.
It was known as a very, very uncool thing.
So uncool, man. I was like, and I was so self-conscious. Anyway, then, so I'm at home, and in my time of skating, I trained myself to do computer programming and marketing. I ended up getting a degree in marketing and business, and then computer programming. It was just something I enjoyed. It was fun. And I was pretty maths orientated at school. So anyway, I was doing like websites for people and trying to help them with apps and come up with things. And on LinkedIn, I kept getting messages from this guy, and he goes, I know who you are. Can you seriously come and look at my kid? And I'm like, this isn't me. And I just kept putting it off. And then I must have put something on my Instagram, and I had a sore neck because I built a mega ramp in Australia. People probably don't know that. In 2010, I was like, I got to extend my career. So I built a mega ramp with this guy, Peter Wilson, his kids, Kiefer Wilson. He's been at X Games a couple of times. He's amazing. But Kiefer was 2 years old when we built this. And that was to extend my career, which I did it, but I ended up breaking my neck on it. We hadn't fully finished it, and we didn't even have a quarter pipe, and I jumped it, and we had these bits of wood laid out, and I just rolled up it, but I hit the bottom one, and then it threw me to the top, and then I flipped off and fell all the way down, and I hit my neck. I didn't know.
From the top.
Yeah, I didn't know that I'd broken my neck. I didn't have any feeling, and then I ended up, it came back. I went home, and then I had headaches, and I went to the doctors and had cracks in my vertebrae up here. And I had spinal fluid leaking and whatnot. But my ex-wife was pretty nuts, and she'd always get angry if I got injured. So I kind of didn't make myself known that I was injured. You know what I mean? So I lost my sense of smell and my taste. They're not back at all. But this guy, he saw that I'd put that up there, and I'm like, I just wish I could get my taste and smell. And he goes, oh, look, I'm an osteopath. I can help you do that. And I had nothing, like no sense of taste, and I was getting a little bit depressed with it. And anyway, he goes, I can fix that. And sure enough, he goes, come and see me. So I went and saw him, and he fixed it. I couldn't believe it. I actually was driving home, and I farted, and I was like, no way. Like, I know it sounds disgusting.
The most exciting day to smell a fart.
I couldn't believe it. So I went straight to go. I went and bought KFC, like, because KFC is totally different than over here.
Yeah.
But I drove straight to KFC. I was like, I ate a burger. Oh my God, like I can taste again. Like it was that crazy. But I looked at this kid, and then he said to me there, he said, your life's not to be a businessman. Your life's to inspire children and make them become the people they want to become.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And I was like, nah, don't worry about that. And then I invested in this gift card company, and I had to go to work every day, and they wanted me to wear a suit. And I was just like, nope. I'm not doing it. And I argued with the guy that I did it with, and Google Ventures put money into that. So I ended up getting a little payout, and I was just like, I'm going to start skate coaching. And I just put a thing on Facebook, hey, skate coach. We called it Skate All Day, and it looked like DGK all day. And so we did that, and I grew from 4 kids to 1,500 kids with 35 coaches in 2 years.
Wow. Good job.
So yeah, it was crazy. I made up this thing called Skate Rats, and it had an app. And
an app where they buy their lessons through it, or how?
No, they don't buy that. So basically it's got the tricks you've got to learn, right? So it keeps the coach accountable.
Yes.
And it just takes them step by step through it. And once they do that, they'd get an ice cream from this ice cream chain and all of that.
Whoa, legendary. So, yeah, I have a very similar app.
I know. I saw it. It's crazy. But yeah, for me, it's about engaging skate parks, right? Because, at skate parks, the people who ruin skate parks are people that don't skate.
Right.
So it's about making more parents come to skate parks, and having a mentor there at the skate park to keep away the crap that hangs out there. So I think councils get that, or cities get that really wrong. They build a football field, but they build it for a purpose.
Yeah.
I think skateboarding, even though it's got to be built for just the art side of skateboarding and that, it still needs to have, like, no one's making up skate clubs and things like that, but the way to do it is that you can engage. If you have 20 kids doing lessons a week at a skate park for 1 hour a week, those kids tend to go another 5 hours, we found with our surveys, a week. So all of a sudden, 20 kids times 5, there's 100 hours of supervised time that would never have happened previously to that at the skate park.
Yeah, see, this is exactly what I'm trying to do with the app and trying to do it worldwide. I just haven't quite figured out exactly how.
Maybe we need to talk more.
Yeah, we do.
I think that's huge. And, so I did that. And then, but what happened was skaters are so hard to tame. And I got screwed by some skaters, and
it's just bound to happen.
Yeah. And then they'll always say I screwed them, but I'd advertise, I'd start coaching in that area, and then I'd give them 60 customers for free. Mm-hmm. As long as I got 20% of your revenue, right? I'd do all the marketing. I employed someone and everything like that. So you give me 20%, you don't have to pay insurance. You don't have to do it. All you have to do is turn up to your lessons and keep them happy and keep them excited, and we'll keep trying to grow it.
Right.
So, and then sure enough, after a year, they think they can do it better.
Yeah, every time.
And I'm like, are you serious? Like, come on. Like, one guy, he came to the USA, he stole a car, got bail, 20,000, fled the country. And the Vans team manager at the time says, hey, can you give him a job? And I'm like, yeah. Next thing you know, after 1 year of me looking after him, oh, but you didn't pay me $450 this one time. I go, oh, was that the time that I said you can become a licensee and that $450 that I owe you, we're going to avoid that because you're about to get paid like $20,000 like from these people. You're going to get the full amount rather than making $500 or $450 a week. It's just like, man, you can never do anything for anyone, you try. And it's the same with some people who rode for THEEVE. Like they're like, oh, but you did this. And it's like, yeah, but I sent you to America 6 times and I'm a truck company, your board company, your shoe company. No one did that. I'm the only one that believed in you and thought that you could become a pro. Even that time when you let off fire extinguisher in a hotel room, I'm the one that bailed you out. No one else did. So
I know it's a funny thing.
It's hard. It's just short memory and young. And I guess, you get older, you reflect on it. But yeah. So I was skating comps and then I started doing the coaching and then I was doing more high performance stuff, I guess. And then I started having people come and film what I did, other parents, and they'd sit in their cars and film me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And I'd go and say, hey, stop filming me. But in Australia, there's no law to stop you from using. I can take a photo of you in Australia and put it on a T-shirt and I can advertise like, this is you. And I can sell it anywhere and you've got no right to that. That's how crazy.
Whoa.
It's crazy. So anyway, I just, I was like, all right, my partner, she was in banking, like I said, high up. And she said to me, you need to do your own facility.
Yeah.
So I did my own facility and I pretty much went bankrupt. But then COVID hit and we came back and we did it. And after 1 year, we had money. Like we'd never had money like that in the business. Like it was good when I was doing it out in the skate
And the
parks.
money's coming from skate lessons.
So the way I structure it is that like our school term's 10 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So we do 8 weeks. So because we found if we did 10 weeks, people wouldn't turn up on the first week because there's so much, parents are so hectic. On the last week, they usually go on vacation early. So we did 8 weeks. And in that 8 weeks, this is the set program, but you deviate because you're there to have fun and teach them about skateboarding. But we want you to tick these things off, right?
Kind of like an after school program.
Yeah, it's totally after school. So after school they do this, right?
And the parent pays per kid
per term.
Per term.
So
for the whole term.
Yep.
Whoa.
So you got that money up front. So you're not chasing. So every week, because this is where they get it wrong over here. I'm giving out all my secrets before I even get here. They get here and they go, everyone's about private lessons, right? I want private. No one gets better. How did you get good at skateboarding?
Just repetition. Just
with people.
Yeah.
You weren't by yourself. You were skating with people. You know what I mean? You're not going to get better in private lessons. 100%. It's about putting people together to feed off each other to get somewhere. That's the only way. And that's how skateboarding's evolved. So we do lessons with 6 kids in it and you pay up front. And we deliver it. If you're not happy with it, well, go somewhere else. You know what I mean? But we just keep growing and growing and growing, right? We got a warehouse twice the size of what you guys have got, and we've outgrown that. We need.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah. And
all based on the after school program kind of. So now you have like a routine, regular school.
So then what happened was my daughter, she hated high school. She was like the school captain in primary school, and then she went to high school in year 7, and she hated it. They're talking about vaping and drugs and drinking and sex and all those things. And she's like, Dad, I'm destined for something bigger. And she was a surfer. And she said to me, Dad, will you coach me for surfing? And I'm like, yeah, look, I can surf. I'm not great, but I can definitely get you to where you need to be. And then we'll put you in the hands of the right people.
Yeah.
So the idea was we took her out, and because my wife and I had separated, it was pretty hard because she comes from a family of educators. And I said, look, she's going to come out. She's going to do 3 hours she's going to do surfing for a couple of hours, 3 hours education, but she has to skate every day. And she hated skating. Like she'd be at our skate park roller skating she's a really good roller skater.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right. So she agreed to that. So we did 3/4 of, well, the next 2 terms. So there's 4 terms. First term she did at regular school. The next 2 terms she did with me. And then I had a friend that came back he was in Bali over COVID. He came back and he goes, why don't you start a high performance center? And I was like, yeah, it's good. And then he said, well, what are you doing with Jada? Why don't you make a school? Because I've been getting asked for ages, like, why don't you start a school? Why don't you start a school and because like the kids that were doing lessons with me, were doing 3 to 4 lessons with me a week.
Yeah.
Right. So I've got all these really good kids and they're getting better and better. And then I was like, one day we're building this area of the skate park and with my friend, and he actually put the high performance center for surfing together and got all the grants and funding for that in Australia for the government.
Yeah.
I've got no affiliation with the government and I never want to because I just don't want to have to bend over.
Yeah, it puts you in a certain position.
And that's why I don't deal with our national body or anything, because they have their ideas and their ideas are only built on something that someone's told them, not something they've ever experienced. Right. And I can give you all the information. I've got no problem giving information because there's 1 in a million that'll take your information and actually do something with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like people say, well, that was my idea. The idea means nothing. The execution is where it's at.
That's exactly.
And good luck on that. Good luck scenarios.
People don't realize how hard this is.
Yeah.
They don't understand the hours. Like, how many hours have you been here today? Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
But you love it that much.
Yeah, it's passion project.
It's passion. So I just said, that's it. I was sitting there swinging a hammer and I said, that's it. We're starting the school. And Anthony goes to me, all right, let's do it. And so he finished the week building with me. I put him in my office and he helped me figure out how to do it. And this is how I work. I work up here. I come up with all the ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
And
head in the clouds.
Yeah, head in the clouds always. And I went and told Sarah, but I'm a numbers guy, so I went and built spreadsheets. I said, hey, this is how much it's going to cost. This is how much we can make if we get this many people. This is the minimum. So we had to get 22 people just to make it work.
Right.
So I advertised it. So we do skateboarding, BMX, and surfing, the 3 Olympic disciplines, right?
Oh, yeah.
Surfing's huge where we are.
Yeah.
And we got 22 people. And I was like, wow. And so we hired a teacher, this lady who said she'd done it before, and she's a friend, so it was hard. And she's a beautiful person.
Yeah.
But I don't think she realized what she took on. And anyway, we got in there first few days. I was like, wow, she's so out of her depth. And it's funny, we had this guy that was coming to our school. And when COVID happened, if you didn't get vaccinated, you couldn't be a teacher.
Right.
So he chose to step out and go, you know what, I'm going to take some long service leave until see what happens. Because he goes, I don't trust everything that's going on. And that was his right. And you should have seen what happened in Australia because COVID was crazy. And I know this doesn't work with a lot of people and their ideas, but they were going to bring in vaccination for every kid at school because that's massive in Australia. Mm-hmm. And parents started freaking out and they heard about my school. So I had people trying to sign up just to our school because it's not a school, it's an academy, and you wouldn't have had to require a vaccination. So we were just like, so anyway, our teacher, he goes, look, I'm going to go back to teaching, but I'm going to take this time out just to see what's going on. He goes, but I can give my time.
Yeah.
So he came on and he was like a high up teacher. Like he gets paid a lot if he's back in the thing. So he came into us and he said to me, I called him up. Well, actually, before they started the school, before it fully started, we interviewed him. And because I said to him, I'm starting a school, and he just laughed at me in my face. And I was like, no, I'm doing it. And I guess he'd heard people say it before. Now, this guy, Tyler's amazing. He is the kids, he's so firm, but so good with the kids. They all love him. Yeah. Like every single kid loves him at the school. And he's taken every single kid at least 1 to 2 grades higher.
Wow.
And they believe in themselves. Like we got kids that were school refusal. This one kid, Kalani, he's like year 9 now or year 10. And he had no confidence in himself. Like I would have said he could have been a potential suicide like in years to come.
Yeah.
Kid's amazing. Like he went from a kid that didn't like school. I'm sure he doesn't like school, and the kids tell me how funny he is in class. Like he just doesn't really want to do it, but he gets his work done. And You know what? He went from a kid that didn't talk to now he talks to everyone. Everyone loves him.
And he's a skater.
He's a skater.
So the way the school is structured is 3 hours of school.
3 hours of school. They come in the morning at 8:45. Some of them come in at 8 because we've got a gym there and we've got an ice bath. So they'll jump in the gym or they'll jump in the ice bath. They don't pump weights. It's like it's all body weight, movement stuff, mobility. They might jump in the ice bath. All these kids can sit in an ice bath for 20 minutes.
They're insane.
Because what I do is I go, it's all in your mind. So they want to, they all, like you see them snake each other. Like, like they want to be the best. And I have to calm them down. Sometimes when I haven't told them, like yesterday we went to Bain's ramp. Thank you, Bain, for having us. But that was snaking Bain. I'm like, hey.
Yeah.
We're not on our ramp now. You've got to, and we're not at a comp. Like I get out of a comp. They're always in this mode. Like they're on. So they get there at 8 to 8:45 in the morning, 9 o'clock, they start their education. So we've got grade 3 and 4, and we've got a teacher that teaches them explicitly face-to-face in 3 hours. So they get all their education done in 3 hours.
Right.
We've got 5 and 6, and they've got teacher explicit. But then 7 to 12, they are they've got online sessions. But what we do is, so say for history, say all the grade 9s, we'll grab them and we'll put them in front of a board and we'll teach it and we'll talk about it. It's a discussion, and then they write all the answers down together.
Right.
And then they upload that, and we don't mark. It gets independently marked by this school that we've partnered with, a distance thing.
Oh, that's cool.
So when people go, oh, but they're getting higher marks because you mark it. It's like, no. We've got nothing to do with it. All we do is deliver the content. It's like it's distance education.
Yeah.
But I've got teachers helping you get through it. And so parents, they pay pretty well for it, but you think about it, they've got a teacher, they've got a strength and conditioning person, they've got myself as a coach. They might have, I think we've got 5 skate coaches.
Wow.
We've got 2 BMX coaches, 3 surf coaches, and they all work together. We all do that. We've got a well-being coach with the kids to make sure everyone's working together.
Yeah.
And then we've got the teachers, and it's pretty crazy. So they do their 3 hours of education, then they come down to the skate park. If you haven't done your education, you're not going down there, or we let you go down there, but you've got to go back.
Right.
And because we've got one warehouse, then we've got another 2 that's about, 300 meters up the road, whatever that is in thing. But so we do that, and that's how it works. And it's crazy to think that I started this. And I've had pushback from the government. I had them call me going, oh, you're a school. And I go, no, I'm not a school. And then I explain what they do. And they're like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And
I could get government funding if I want, but there's a lot that I have to do and a lot I have to jump through, but I'm not politically correct at all. Right?
No way.
and
Shocker.
And people get upset at that, but people talk about influencers. I'm not an influencer. I'm a real influencer, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm as real as it comes. I'll tell you what's black, what's white, what's this. And I go, and I see where you're coming from, but there's a reality to the situation. And we need a bit more reality. And I think over the years, a lot of reality's been distorted, especially for the kids.
Yes.
And I think we need to teach them reality first, and then they get to choose what their reality is later. Right. You know what I mean? And then also with the education system, I think that there's a lot that's looked over. So in Australia, with our school, which isn't a school, but it is a school.
Academy.
Spelling is a big thing for me.
Oh,
because text messaging doesn't teach kids to spell, right?
Right.
So you've got to spell. So kids will send me text messages, and I send back, and I go and I rewrite it with the correct spelling, and they're like, "Oh man." And they go, okay, cool. And they're getting better at it. So there's one kid, Zen, he's got a few learning, just barriers to things, and his spelling's terrible, but it's getting better. And he likes to text me because, okay, that's how you spell it. And he remembers it. Yeah. Because they've got amazing brains, but they can't do that. We got other kids that can't write. Their handwriting's terrible. And, but we put them onto a computer and we negotiate with the school, and they went from not being able to get any any grades at all to now being B students. And so we do that, and then times tables and simple maths and is additions and subtractions huge, because you go to a store and you get ripped off money because they don't know how to count money.
Right.
We do that with them because I say to them, like, when you get cash, you count it all. You know what I mean? Like, and when you're dealing with sponsors, because it all comes back to real life stuff. And when you
real life scenarios.
When you make it like that, they go, oh, okay, I get it. So now all the kids are good with their maths and they all have to do, and because like I'll be there and I go, okay, whoever can, they go, I want to go first. I go, okay, 6 times 5. And then somebody will go, oh, 30. I go, you're up first. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So on the ramp.
On the ramp when we're coaching, and we do those things because they need to know it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I'm not politically correct. So at our school, if something goes wrong, I get stuck into them. Like, when they're like, one kid snapped the mirror off one of our buses, you know what I mean? And the parents are like, and this kid like wouldn't clean up after himself or do anything like that. And that's a big thing, teaching things like that.
Yes.
And I just said the parents on the phone, because I got upset at him and I said, this is BS, like that's worth $30,000. You can't do that just because you're angry and whatnot. Anyway, the parents going at me, and this is parents with a bit of cash, they're doing pretty well for themselves. And I just said, you know what? It's a reflection of your parenting. And the parents are like, well, you can't talk to me like that. I'm going to give your school a bad name. I said, cool. And I said, and why you do that? You're a detriment to your kid. I said, you need to turn around and make your kid do these things. And I said, and it needs to happen today. I said, if my kid acted or spoke like that, I would lose it at them. Like, they need to be told. I said, they're children. They got to learn. And your job is to teach them. And then you're not teaching your child. They've got to learn from this. And that's what our school's about, is being a good human first. And then you can be a good athlete later, because you can't be a good athlete without being a good human. Because nowadays, there's the world's too fake, I think. And everyone sees, like, we see all these kids in the US skating from Australia because we only see it on Instagram. And then we get here and we're like, wow, they're not quite as good as what we thought they were. And it was the same as like when we were kids, we'd watch the videos and we come here, and I had a friend, Dave Bodner, and he was once at a comp and he beat everyone. And we're sitting on a bus going from Lausanne in Switzerland to, I think, Germany. And he goes, he's got the funniest voice. He goes, oh, all you Americans, you guys do all these tricks on your videos. Man, I just stitched you all up with your own tricks. I can do them every time. Like that. And like, he was just mucking around, but like, and he got ousted out of skating because of his attitude, but he came back a bit later. But it's just, you've got to be a good human. Yeah. And I think that's a big thing. So that's what we're trying to do, is build really good humans. They do snake a little bit. But, cleaning up after yourselves, especially regulating yourself. You probably notice a lot of skaters have ADHD or something like that, a bit of ASD as well, like autism spectrum. But we're able to manage through that and work with them to give them what they want. And, parents are like, my kid's amazing to deal with now. And this one parent, she was like, I'm going to ruin your school and give you a bad name. And I said, I don't care. Everyone hates me. So just jump on board.
I know. There's nothing that you can do that hasn't already been done.
That's what I said. And anyway, she had a parent teacher meeting with our teacher, Tyler, and Tyler's like, she's like, doesn't he care about the money he's going to lose? And he goes, Trevor doesn't care about money. He cares about your kid. And you say, the fact that you've missed the point, like, I actually care about each and every one of our kids. And when a kid leaves the school, it's not because of the kid, it's because of the parents' expectations. So parents will go, oh, my kid's not getting better, but they don't understand skating's like this. And
getting better at skating.
And then, getting better at skating. So some parents' expectations are that my kid's going to get better, even with our surfing program. Oh, my kid's going to get better exponentially fast.
Yeah.
So they've been around some kids that weren't as good as them, and then they go like that in our school, and their kids still like this. And this is where I have to explain, this is the end goal. It's not here, right? So while one's going like this and your kid's still doing this, he's got developmental things he's got to get through. He might not have, some of the boys, like before they're 13 or when puberty kicks in, they don't have the balls to go out there and do things. So it's explaining that to them. And, even with surfing's the hardest thing to coach, you know what I mean? Like, and to get instant reward, and results. But the part that you have to understand in surfing is that it's not about doing competitions now. Like, and that's for me too, even with skating, like it's not about competitions now. It's about this end game. Like when they're 18, when they're ready to go out on their own, 16 to 18, that's when it should start getting a bit more pointier and more elite with them. And then the same with BMX. BMX is really fast learn as well. Like, but surfing's that one and our surfing program, we've got one of the best development coaches there is in the country, and still that's not enough for some of these parents, you know what I mean? But this is the thing.
High bar.
Oh my gosh. But then they go, we don't want to be in the school anymore, but we want to engage you to coach our kid. And we're like, well, what's the difference? Like, your kid's actually getting more in our school. Like, our school works out to be $85 a day, right? But you've got like some of the best coaches in the world coaching you. You've got, like I said, well-being, strength and conditioning. Where else can you go and get that? And 3-4 hours of coaching a day.
Well, I think there's also something that people don't totally understand. Like in our school system, you have a kid who sits there and they're just reading books. They're just taking things in. And then if you're balancing it with half inflow, half outflow, and they're skateboarding and their attention has to be out. If their attention is not out, it's grave danger.
Oh yeah.
Their attention is pulled out, which is it's so healthy to do that.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, these kids are so well adjusted in that sense. Like, some of the maturity thing, because there's a lot of young kids, like they're down a little bit, but you know, my daughter's 15 and her friends are 13 or 14, you know what I mean? But she's a younger kind of kid. So I'm not worried about that. Like, be a kid as long as possible.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, we're still kids.
Yeah, we're still kids. And that's what I'm trying to do. So yeah, we've got this school and we're just trying to make it better and give these kids an understanding of how the industry works.
Yeah.
And how skateboarding works, and also make them understand how to coach themselves. Like, it's not about me coaching them. Everyone's like, oh, Trevor, you're so good at coaching, but it's not me.
Right.
It's me putting them with the right people. Because when we were kids, you know, you started in your group and then kids dropped off and you moved into another group and then you moved to another city, and then you move to another state, or like me, you move to another country, and then you're in this group, and that's how you get better. Yeah. But people don't
laying in the bathtub with the gunshots, going to skate with Mike Frazier.
Yeah, well, that's it, and that's how it works. And I think parents, and I've seen this a lot here in the US, is that they're trying to isolate their kids from other kids. Oh, don't skate with that kid because he's your competitor. Like,
right. That's not skateboarding.
You're only as good as your competitor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you've got to go and train with that. Keep your enemies closer.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's usually not the kids that hate each other. It's the parents that don't like each other.
Yeah.
And that's massive. And parents need to get the F out of it and let the kids be kids, because even if those kids want to have Olympic aspirations, shut your mouth, just fund it, because we understand that skateboarding is becoming a rich man's sport for the Olympics. Like, it's insane what World Skate's doing. Like, it's a whole other thing. But
you mean because of what it costs to go to the contest?
So so you've got to go, if you want to go to the last comp, it was in San Juan in Argentina, right? Yeah. So if you come from Australia, it's about 4,000 Australian dollars to get there.
Right.
Then you've got to stay there. And we'd fly out a month beforehand, because what happens is the week before the comp, they close, or a couple of weeks before the comp, they close the park down and no one can skate because it's an unfair advantage. So now all of a sudden, because you only get 3 practices at 45 minutes each with 10 to 14 people in there. Now,
which is insane.
It's insane. But in street, it's the same format. But in street, you can have 20 people on the park at once.
That's right.
In bowl, you can't.
No.
You know what I mean? You can only have one person in there. So I think that should be a lot longer.
Yeah.
But when you've got to run 80 skaters through, it's pretty bloody hard, you know. Yeah. So I get that side of things. But they're doing it in San Juan, right? Middle of Argentina. Sorry, guys, it's the worst place I've ever been in my life.
Argentina, come on.
San Juan, like, oh my gosh, it was a desert. It was, you know, I've been to some amazing places, but I'm sorry, it was. And you know, when you've got the gold mine and the casino funding what's going on there, you kind of look at it and go, well, this is a little bit sketchy.
Yeah.
But, you know, look, World Skate are trying their best. Do they have skateboarding's best interests at hand? I don't know. I don't think so. It'd be great if skateboarding could get together and build their own thing. But the problem with skateboarders is everyone wants 2 cents now. They don't want 2 million later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone's after that quick dollar now. And if
and so fast to knife each other in the back. Like, we got to just stop it. Like, let's
stop
work
it.
together.
No one wants to work together. You know what I mean? Like at the moment, I've been trying to work with vert skaters to put a vert tour together. You know what I mean? Like, we've got 10 of probably the most amazing vert skaters that get 3 comps a year. They get X Games Japan if they get picked, X Games USA if they get picked. But now Tony's made that a bit better with Vert Alert. They got to qualify.
Yeah.
And we got Vert Alert. So three events. And it's like, well, you know what? Why don't we just come together? Because at each event, they'll whinge and complain about that it's not fair and this and that. And somebody goes, well, I missed out and all of that because I'm not cool. And it's like, well, why don't we come together so we can dictate back to ESPN and things like that and say to them, hey, it's got to be on our terms, you know what I mean? And why don't we start our own events and start our own company? So I want them to be able to we create our own company and all the main vert skaters, they own it. And then you can, if people want to come in, they can have an opportunity to buy in. And then they create equity in their own sport. And then they can dictate and people see value in it. Right now, there's no value.
Right.
So it's minimal value. And Tony's doing a great job, but Tony's got a million things on. So I'm trying to educate these guys on, hey, take control of your own sport like Rob Dyrdek did, you know what I mean? And he's made a lot of money. He's the Dyrdek machine, you know what I mean? And I'm like, you guys can do that. So it's not just one guy owning it. All of you guys can own it. And tell me this, a vert ramp out somewhere like on a beach, he would get thousands of people to watch compared to putting in a concrete street course and people watching that, because the general public are going to watch that.
Yeah.
And that's how we get people involved in skateboarding, not doing a street league comp that's only not to take anything away from what they've done.
Sure.
But that's amazing that he's been able to capture that market. You know what I mean? We're just about to get a street league in Australia, which will be the first one. And I'm trying to figure out how do we partner with them to make a skate comp in Australia, and whoever wins that gets to go through into it. So.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing we need. Every area needs its own little machine,
Feeder.
well, little or big or whatever.
And that comes back to the skate coaching.
Yeah.
Right. So if you were able to do that and then have those mentors and then create comp series if we made up like my Skate Rats program that was in every skate park in the USA. Now, there's got to be 10,000 skate parks in the USA.
Yeah.
So there's 10,000 jobs straight away.
Right. Instantly created. I know. That's what I'm trying to do with this app. It's like supposed to be, the coding has been a nightmare, years and years and years.
Yeah.
Complete, utter nightmare.
I've done the same thing too, just invested money into things. And I'm like, and Sarah, my partner, she goes, where did that money go for that? And I'm like, it's dead in the water, you know? Like, people don't realize it takes that much. And then you do it and you're not happy with it. You want it to be something else.
I know it constantly.
Yeah.
But there is something there. I just know it. I just know there's like, sort of the Uber of skateboard lessons kind of situation.
100%.
Because I think there is also a thing where, like you're saying, creating the jobs, there is a way, like how many of my skater friends are like, they're just struggling.
Yep.
And they can do a lesson and make $30 an hour. They're stoked.
Well, you know what? If you had 6 of those kids paying $30 an hour, or even if it was 15. So if you go, okay, for 10 weeks, sign up. It's a beginner class. There's 6 kids, or you can do 10 kids. I used to be able to do 10 kids, ADHD. I've got them here banging like that.
Yeah.
6 kids is value, right?
Group lessons.
Group lessons. And you do it over 10 weeks. That's $150, right? You get parents pay $150 for 10 weeks, right?
Yeah.
It's 1 hour every week. They come on that Monday night at 4:00. You know what I mean? After school, get in there and do it. You do three lessons a night, right? So, and you got six, and you charge, what is it, $15, 6, 12, 18 times 15, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's what you're making a night. You know what I mean? And it's like, you don't need a job.
Right.
You could just be doing that. 3 hours of work a night. It's pretty easy. But the problem with skaters, they get lazy. They get all the money up front. That's the other issue. You'd have to make we'll have to talk about the airplane.
Off the camera.
Yeah.
Says.
But yeah, so that's what we do. And you know, exposing the kids to the USA market is the number one, and being able to have this relationship now of my kids coming to Braille. These kids all grew up on you.
Yeah.
So they're all sitting there going, wow, like they were up this morning going, we want to go, we want to go, we want to go.
Really?
They couldn't believe they met you yesterday. And I couldn't believe it either because I've sat in bed with my son and watched a million of yours and Andy Schrock stuff, you know, and I'm like, who are these guys? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm just like, wow, it's cool. And then, you know, I'm too embarrassed to get in front of the camera myself and do something like this in Australia, but I know I should, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there's so much information that we can give everyone.
Right.
But, you know, it's just all the haters out there. There's too many. And
and then get behind the keyboard and the haters just go exponential growth.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you laugh.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to laugh at it because you put it in perspective. What have these people done? Like, you know, there's a lot of bitter people, and you know what? It's not you and I that did that to them.
Right.
It's actually the industry that did it to them.
Right. And there's various changes that just occur in the world, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the
Who
internet.
would have even thought about this?
I know.
You're amazing that you're an early adopter to it. Like, and that's great. And that's why people are so angry.
Yeah.
Because they're like, dude, he got it done. And it's like, you know, well, that's amazing. You know, what have you got? 4.5 million?
Yeah. On YouTube, we have 5.8 million. Across our social platforms, we have over 10 million.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been, you know, but then somebody put it into perspective, you know, I think it was actually Jim Thiebaud, and I don't even know where I heard this, but I think somebody said to him like something like, oh, Braille, those guys are kooks, da-da-da-da-da, whatever. And then he was like, well, I mean, they've made 5,000 videos. So like, have you made 5,000 videos?
You know,
there's a lot of work.
It's so much work. People don't understand how much work goes into this and what you do. Like, I know, like, so on this trip, I do some edits and things like that. And you know, I'm up to 2 a.m. doing it. And I've got a guy back in Australia I could send it to, but you know, it's like, I'll just do it. You know what I mean? Because that's me. Yeah. And, you know, I think, it's amazing what you've done, and you've reached so many skaters, and we've got so many kids that come to Australia. And you know what they say to me? Oh, do you know Aaron Kyra? And I'm like, no, I don't. But now I can say I do know you. You know what I mean? Like, it's amazing that we can do this.
Yeah, it's so interesting for me and my side, because sometimes I feel like I'm here in this room with the cameras, whatever, and I don't really always get to see. Like, sometimes we did a tour last summer, and it was so cool because after COVID, especially COVID, it just took everybody and just separated them out. And it was so hard. And then to get back into the skate parks, I don't always get to see that side of it. And then I start to feel like, man, are all my efforts going to waste? So it's good to hear. Like,
no, it's not.
It's good to hear that kids are.
And all these companies need to actually embrace it, because they don't realize that you're their first point of call. If you put in skateboarding in YouTube, who comes up first? It's you. And so what do those kids watch? You. And then you're the introduction to skateboarding, and you do some funny stuff, man, like some really good stuff.
Yeah. And we also design the content. I don't think many people realize this. They go, oh, we do all this weird stuff. It's so kooky, whatever. But we literally design the content to bring in a new audience. If all we did was skate videos, like that's
no one gets it.
Yeah. You're not going to never reach out.
No.
You have to do something that's going to grab somebody's attention.
Like the skating the iPad.
Yeah, skating the iPad. You know how many people I went to the skate park and they said, I started skating because I saw you skate an iPad. And I just went, we were onto something. Bring them in, teach them how to do it. Bring them in, teach them how to do it. And then just repeat that cycle.
That's it. And like I said, and that's what Nike knew. And that's why they won skateboarding.
Yeah, that is so interesting, because I didn't really understand that or put that together.
Yeah.
But in that book, it's so incredible. And he's constantly going, 2 billion pairs of shoes, you know, like various thing like that. He's like
crazy.
Repeating
and
the statement.
5,000 videos.
Yeah. Oh my.
That's massive. And you know what? I'm one of those 5,000.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And our kids will forever be indebted to you as well, because you're giving them a platform where they can't get it
Yeah, that's the thing. And just leave it open for people. Like, this is our community. We have to build this community. I'm trying to figure out how to just do a better job. I'm constantly going, just that thing that I was saying, like cliche went under, DVS went under. It's because we don't have enough people.
I think we have enough people. I think there is a lot of people. I just think there's a lot of people taking that aren't skaters. And like, I brought in people that weren't skaters. You know what I mean?
Venture capitalists.
Yeah. And
into the community.
And they take it, and you do need them to a point. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, because there are some of these companies that they've all got investors. Like,
Sure.
Everyone thinks they're skater owned and that's it, you know, their core.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the biggest joke I think is NHS. And I shouldn't say this because I love those brands, bought them as a kid, but Rich Novak's not a skater.
I don't even know who that is.
That's the owner of Santa Cruz and all of that. He is a surfer. Right. And they saw it come and they preyed on it and they made it.
Yeah.
You know, like they were gnarly. And you know how they got their trucks in the stores? They went down and there was all these other truck companies. This is back in the 80s, I think even the 70s.
Yeah.
And they just ripped the trucks off the wall and put their trucks there. And they're gnarly.
It was
you know
a different time period.
It was a different time. And that, like, I hear those stories and I love it. And, you know, like I've read stuff on Rich Novak. He is a smart business guy.
Yes,
but he's not
clearly.
But he's not a skater.
Right.
Don't sit there and say that he's a skateboarder. Like, he might have skated down the road, you know what I mean?
But Jeff Kendall's a skater.
But he didn't own it, and he didn't start it.
But now he owns it.
I think he owns it now. So.
Yeah. Shout out Jeff Kendall.
I had one of your boards, Jeff.
Yeah.
And I still think you're an iconic skater. So, and it's good with that stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's good. But it's just funny that, you know, you hear all this, oh, it's this, it's that. And you're just like, oh, man, how do we get ahead? But those guys are so iconic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I wrote THEEVE since I've done THEEVE, and the other day I didn't have any more, so I had to put on indies again, you know what I mean? So here's a guy that had designed something, and I've revolutionized skateboarding because it wasn't actually me. It was a guy that worked with me and helped me. Yeah. Todd Webster, rest in peace. That's why I have to call it out. He invented the titanium axle truck, which Thunder took and then Indy took. So not that it was a major invention. He just said, oh, we should just put titanium in that. You know what I mean? But he came up with that idea. So I think, I just think the skate industry is a funny one. But I think now the guys are all getting older. And speaking with Jim Thiebaud, he's just he just wants everyone to love skateboarding. He's the same as you. We've got the same heart and we want the same thing. And there's some people that are younger, and he's even said it to me, is that they're just jaded and don't understand what it's about, and it takes him. But he said he's trying to educate that now, which is amazing. And he's a great heart and a great person for skateboarding. Yeah. And you know what? He was an early adopter to social media. Like Gary V, he started giving out books about Gary V and all of that. And Gary's crazy as hell, you know what I mean? Yeah. And he said that this guy, the Thank You, I think he's got a book called The Thank You Nation or something like that. Yes. Thank You. Oh, yeah. But, and I read that. He told me to read that. I was with another guy, Fred Van Shee at the time, and he said, oh, you guys should read this. And I read that and I was like, oh, all right, cool. That's good. But, you know, like, as I said, our relationship's been up and down as well. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we both have the same want for skateboarding like you do. We just want more people skating and feeling the love of what we have. Right. I feel like if you're a real skater, you love it. And if you are not willing to like openly share that with another person, you're not a real skater. You're not a real skater. I don't care what tray flip crook you can do. Yeah. Like, I don't know. You have this passion for this thing. You should share that alone. It's like your duty. Yeah. It's kind of like, hundreds of years ago, you became a blacksmith because your dad was a blacksmith and his dad and all of that. And it's just, and that's what we need to do. We got to pass that down. And I do that with the kids. Like I say, you can do that trick. Like it's really cool that you did that trick, but this is the way that trick's perceived. And they're like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I said, but do it. You know what I mean? Because we still have to pass those things down and understand it. And then, there's a reason why we don't push Mongo, and they're like, well, what is that reason? Because like I'm sure you have parents say, oh, but my kid's left-footed or something like that. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure if you've noticed, if you see a kid kickflip and they're Mongo pusher, they lean in the back seat all the time because they're so used to being back like that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you got to be over your front foot for a kickflip. You know what I mean? And then they're like, oh, okay. So I just say to her, do you want to kickflip one day? And they're like, yeah. And I go, well, you got to push with your back foot. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. You know, we don't call it out. We don't, oh, you're a Mongo pusher like that.
Yeah.
But,
It doesn't mean to like degrade or make less of them or have some gatekeep situation.
No.
But yeah, when people ask me, I usually go like, well, imagine you're skating a set of stairs
Yep.
and you have very little run up. You don't have time to push, readjust your feet and go.
Because
you run, throw your front foot down.
It's 3 adjustments, push and Mongo. One, it's just straight on and you go.
Yeah,
and then the other thing I say to parents is when you go to soccer training, do you kick the ball with your toe or do you kick it with the side of your feet? And they go the side of your feet. And I said, so let me do my job and you guys just pay the money. So yeah, we have those things, but it's just, as you said, it's just passing it down.
Yeah, it's interesting. And how do we pass it down better? How do we grow this thing? How do we just work together better?
Working together, because that's not something skateboarders do.
Right.
Stab them in the back.
Right. But now we have this thing, social media has its ups and downs, and I have a love-hate relationship with it as well. But now we have these open communication channels where we can have these conversations and we can get it out there. And maybe, maybe we can clear the air of some stuff. And
I think that's a good thing. And I think a lot of it is misunderstood and jealousy too, because everyone hates people who make money. Like they do. They just hate it. They look at you and they go, oh, that guy, like, how does he make money? And it's like, well, look at his YouTube. It's pretty easy, to look. And then look at those people are going to buy something off him. And you get 1% of those 5.8 million subscribers to buy it off. And guess what? He's richer than you straight away. But they don't realize that because they're dumb. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to be rude, but skateboarders aren't, general public's not that smart. You know what I mean? Like everyone, I've got to get a job, I've got to do this, but you don't have to get a job. You decide where you go. And
you should run your life and do,
people don't understand the risks we take.
Yeah. Well, some of these guys, like there's this video of the Apple dude. He's talking Steve Jobs, and he's talking about like, you have to be insane to do this. And Elon Musk, he has this quote where he says, running a business is the equivalent of chewing broken glass. And there's never been a real more statement that I go like, that is so real.
It's so real, man. It's like insane. Like Sarah, my partner, she lay awake at night going, this isn't going to, and I'm so optimistic. Don't worry, it will. Like, we'll be fine. She goes, how can you sleep at night? And I'm like, I just close my eyes because I go, there's nothing I can do at night to.
Yeah.
And it's when I wake up. It's when I'm awake, I'm proactive.
Yeah.
And I'm reactive and I can make things happen. When I'm asleep, I need a good sleep. And I don't worry about it. She goes, but you can just switch off. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to, when you've got a business, you got to learn to switch off.
Yeah, you do, and we have done very well and we've done really great. But but man, there's some times where I go like, man, people have no idea. And then I read the Phil Knight thing and even the Elon Musk, he sells his company for $180 million and he invests it all into SpaceX and Tesla. And then he cannot pay his rent. Yeah. You don't think of a person who's like, I don't have any place to live because I just made $180 million.
And you know what? This is the thing. And this is what skateboarders are. I know I always say this, like, I trust myself and I'm not a gambler at all. Like, but I bet on myself 100%. Yeah. With everything I do. I know I can do that. I try to put that belief into the kids.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They need that.
It's like, you can do it. No, like, oh, your parents said you couldn't do it? What do they do for work? I say that all the time. What do they do for work? Well, that's the reason why they don't believe you can do it, because they can't do it. And because they can't do it doesn't mean you can't do it.
Right. And let's show them that you can do it by the end of this week.
And that's how it is. So, and that's what we do with our kids, like Arissa, who would have thought 2 years ago the girl couldn't even do an air on vert, and now she's the world's best vert skater. Like and she will be the world's best park skater. Yeah. And she's 13 years old.
First girl to do a 720 on a vert ramp.
Yeah, she's nuts, and she just wants to keep going. And it's like my daughter, she's in August 2 years into skating.
That's insane.
She beat JD on a back three, and a fakey 5. Get your stuff in order, JD. So, but yeah.
Shout out Team Australia.
Yeah. So we're going to come and bring Level up to Southern California. So it'll be pretty cool.
Very, very exciting.
Do the school here, and let's start bringing some of our Aussie love here, and yeah, do more partnerships with people like yourself who are doing the right thing and introducing people to skateboarding. I love it.
Let's do it. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you so much.
everything you do.
Thank you for everything you do.
It's amazing to see the kids. I love the idea of the school.
Yep.
I love the education and the skateboard right in the curriculum.
Yep.
So awesome.
No worries.
And yeah, the pleasure's been all mine.
Thank you so much, man. You do a great thing for it. Like skateboarding is in good hands with you. And thanks for introducing all those kids, or else we wouldn't have customers. Appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Thanks, man.
All right, so I have no idea where you guys are listening and or watching this podcast, but we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you in the next one.